we explore the version of Harry Potter that nobody talks about because it is the hardest to imagine. Not the darkness, but the light. What if James and Lily Potter survived the night at Godric's Hollow? What if Harry Potter grew up in a house with 2 living parents who loved him? What does courage look like when you have everything to lose? What does sacrifice mean when the person making it is not an orphan but a son? And who is Harry Potter really at his core when the defining fact of his existence is not absence but presence? In this version of the story, the boy who lived does not live alone. He has always had people standing beside him. What he discovers, in the end, is that this makes it harder, and that harder is not the same as worse. Sirius arrived at 12 minutes past midnight. He would remember this detail for the rest of his life. Not because 12 minutes made the difference, it didn't, exactly, but because for the rest of his life he would think about those 12 minutes. About what they contained. About how close. He had driven the motorbike from London at a speed that was neither legal nor, in any strict sense, possible, and he had known as he drove that something was wrong because the specific, cold quality of the air was the quality of a night that had already become a different kind of night. He had known, with the particular, physical certainty that friendship produces in the people who take it seriously, that Peter had done it. He had known Peter was going to do it for 3 weeks, had not been certain enough to say it aloud. The uncertainty was the thing he would carry forever. The not saying. The 3 weeks of watching Peter's behaviour and cataloguing the wrongness and not being certain enough to act. He landed the motorbike in the garden at Godric's Hollow, which was no longer a garden because the south wall of the cottage was gone and the rubble was still settling, and the dark was full of the specific smell of violent magic, the burnt air smell, the ozone smell, the smell that the Order's members knew and hated. He ran inside. James was on the floor of the hallway, not dead. Sirius established this in the first second, hand on James's chest moving but unconscious, bleeding from a wound on his head, and another on his arm, curled around his wand in the specific posture of someone who had fought until the last possible moment. The wand was scorched. He had fought. He had had his wand this time. Sirius had made him promise, months ago, don't go anywhere without your wand, James. I know it sounds paranoid, I know it sounds like I'm moody, just do it. And James had done it, had been moving through the house with his wand in his hand when Voldemort came through the door. He had not been enough. But he had been enough to matter. Sirius found Lily on the stairs. Also alive, also unconscious. She had been blasted backward into the banister, it was broken around her, by the force of something that was not the killing curse, but was the aftermath of it. The specific magical shockwave of a killing curse that had rebounded. Her arms were stretched out in the posture of someone who had thrown themselves forward. She had thrown herself forward. She had always been going to throw herself forward. And Harry. Sirius climbed to the nursery. The nursery was intact, the only room in the house that was intact. Harry was in his crib, upright, eyes wide, not crying. He had his mother's eyes. He had a lightning bolt-shaped wound on his forehead that was still bleeding slowly. And he looked at Sirius with the absolute, undefended attention of a 15-month-old who has been through something enormous and who does not yet have the framework to be frightened. "Hello?" Sirius said. His voice sounded strange. He picked Harry up. Harry grabbed his collar. "Held on. I know," Sirius said. "I know. I'm sorry I wasn't faster." He stood in the nursery with Harry in his arms, and below him the house breathed around 2 people who had almost died, and outside somewhere, gone, weakened, defeated but not dead, dispersed but not finished, Something that had been Lord Voldemort was retreating. Not dead. Neither were they. Sirius went back downstairs and sat on the floor of the hallway between James and Lily and held Harry and waited for dawn and for Dumbledore and for whatever came next. He held Harry very carefully. Harry fell asleep against his shoulder. "You're all right," Sirius told him. "You're all right. They're going to be all right." He said it enough times that he almost believed it. James woke first. 3 hours after midnight. He saw Sirius. He saw Harry asleep on Sirius's shoulder. He looked at the destroyed south wall of his house and at the marks on the floor and at his own wand in his hand and at the dried blood on his arm. "Lily," he said. "On the stairs," Sirius said. "Breathing, she's breathing." James made a sound that had no name. He got up, badly, his legs uncertain, and went to the stairs, and Sirius heard him sit down beside Lily, heard him say her name, heard her make a sound that meant she was conscious. Then there was a long silence. Then James came back. He was white. He looked at Harry. "How is he?" James said. "I think he's all right," Sirius said. He gestured at his own forehead. James came and looked at Harry's forehead, at the lightning bolt wound. He looked at it for a long time. "Voldemort," James said. "Yes, he's gone," Sirius said. "Not dead, I don't think. But gone. Defeated. The curse. It rebounded. Lily put herself between Harry and the curse," James said. He did not say it with surprise. He said it with the specific, devastated certainty of someone who had known this was what Lily would do and who had not been fast enough to stop it. "Yes," Sirius said. "And the rebounding hit Voldemort. He's dispersed, diminished, whatever it is. He's not coming back tonight." James looked at the destroyed wall, at the rubble, at the specific violence of what the night had contained. "I wasn't fast enough," James said. "You were fast enough," Sirius said. "You kept him occupied long enough for Lily to—" "I wasn't fast enough," James said again. It was not self-pity. It was the specific statement of a man who was going to carry a piece of this forever. Sirius looked at him. "Both of you are alive," he said. "Harry is alive. You were fast enough for that." James sat down on the floor beside Sirius. They sat in the destroyed hallway together. Harry, between them, was still asleep. "Peter," James said. "Yes, was it? Yes," Sirius said. "I'm going after him." "Not tonight, you're not," James said. "James, not tonight." James put his hand on Sirius's arm. "Tonight you're going to stay here with us." Sirius looked at him, at the white face and the dried blood, and the absolute exhaustion of someone who has used everything he had and who is running on nothing. "Yes," Sirius said. "Tonight I'll stay." Lily came down from the stairs at some point before dawn. She moved slowly and she had a bruise that covered half of one side of her face, and she sat down on James's other side, and James put his arm around her and she leaned her head on his shoulder. "Harry," she said. "Here," Sirius said. She looked at her son, at the mark on his forehead, at the way he slept with his fist clenched around Sirius's collar. "My boy," she said. Very quietly, the three of them sat in the hallway, waiting for dawn. The world outside was the world of October 31st, becoming November 1st, 1981. The world where Lord Voldemort had been defeated, where the war was ending, where something enormous had just happened. Inside the hallway, 3 people sat with a sleeping baby and breathed. The years that followed were not what anyone expected. They were better and harder than expected, in the specific ways that surviving something terrible is better and harder than the not surviving. They moved out of Godric's Hollow. James could not stay in the cottage. The repaired cottage, the reconstructed wall, the house that tried to be what it had been. And Lily understood this without it needing to be said. They found a house in the Scottish Highlands, outside a village that had a pub and a post office and no awareness of the wizarding world. They made it home, which took time, because making something home after something has already ended requires an act of will that is not always available. James was different. Not in the fundamental way, he was still James, still loud and warm, and the person who turned everything into an occasion, who laughed too loudly and cared too obviously, and who carried his heart entirely on the outside of his chest. But there was a layer underneath that hadn't been there before. A watchfulness. He checked the wards twice before he slept. He kept his wand closer than he used to. He had nightmares that he didn't discuss and that Lily didn't press him on because she had her own. Lily was differently. She was more precise, more deliberate. She had spent months after the night at Godric's Hollow processing the specific experience of throwing herself in front of a killing curse and surviving it. The processing produced in her a very clear internal geography, the things that mattered and the things that didn't, and the line between them. Harry was in the first category. The job at the ministry was in the second. She resigned. She did research from home, on her own terms, and she was there when Harry woke up in the mornings. Harry did not remember any of it. He was 15 months old when it happened, which was too young for memory but not too young for imprint. He would grow up knowing the story, knowing it from both of them, in the way children grow up knowing the stories that form them, but he would not remember the cottage or the nursery or the lightning bolt wound being made. The wound healed. Almost, it left a scar in the shape of a bolt of lightning, thin and white, on his forehead. He would have it for his entire life. The house in the Highlands. Harry's first memory was the flying. Not literal flying, not on a broomstick. His father, on a clear morning in early spring, throwing him up into the air and catching him. The specific sensation, the leaving of the ground and the return to it, the brief, impossible moment of weightlessness, the laughter that went with it. His father's hands, certain and warm, always there at the catching, always there. He had this memory before he had language for it. He had the feeling of it, the specific, uncomplicated joy of going up and coming down and being caught, and he carried it through everything that came after the way you carry the first good things, as the baseline, the standard, the thing against which you measure. James taught him to fly on a proper broomstick at age 3. Not well, at 3, the flying was closer to hovering, a few feet off the ground with James's hand on the back of his robes and James's voice saying, "Lean forward, Harry." A little more, there you go, but real. The real thing. Lily watched from the window and worried. This was the specific texture of Lily Potter. As a parent, she watched from the window and she worried, and she did not say anything because she understood, with the clarity that had come after Godric's Hollow, that you could not keep someone on the ground to protect them from falling. You could only be there when they landed. She was always there when he landed. The Hogwarts letter. It arrived on Harry's birthday, July 31st, 1991, which was not a surprise to anyone in the house. James had been watching the owls for 2 weeks. When it finally came, he opened the back door and said, entirely unnecessarily, "Harry, I think there's an owl for you." Harry was in the garden. He had been in the garden every morning that summer reading, because the garden in July was where you could be both inside and outside at the same time, and Harry had always liked that quality about the summer garden. He came in and took the letter from the owl and opened it and read it and looked up. James was watching him with the specific expression, the one that Harry had grown up reading, the one that was joy performing as casualness, the one that meant this matters enormously to me and I am trying not to show the enormousness. He was failing completely. "Well," James said. "Hogwarts," Harry said. James's expression abandoned the pretense. He crossed the kitchen in 2 steps and picked Harry up in the specific, complete, bone-crushing way he had been doing since Harry was small enough not to object, and which Harry at 11 both objected to and actively loved. "James," Lily said from the doorway. She was smiling, Hogwarts, James said. He sounded like he might cry. He was not going to cry. He was absolutely going to cry. Lily. Hogwarts. I know, Lily said. I'm the one who sent the letter. James put Harry down. Harry straightened his glasses, which had been displaced. He looked at the letter again. Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He knew Hogwarts. He had known about it since he could remember. James's stories had been full of it since before Harry could follow the stories, and he had visited once when James had a meeting with Dumbledore, and he had stood in the entrance hall at age 7 and looked up at the enchanted ceiling and felt the specific, resident magic of a place that had been working for 1,000 years. He had been waiting for this letter. Can I go find out my house before term? Harry asked. No, Lily said. Your mother's head of... Well, you'll find out when the hat tells you, James said. He had been about to say something about Lily's position in the magical world and had stopped himself, which was itself information. Trust the hat. Harry looked at the letter. I'll be in Gryffindor, he said. Not a question. Don't assume, Lily said. Mum, Dad was in Gryffindor. You were in Gryffindor. Sirius and Remus were in Gryffindor. Sirius's entire family was Slytherin for generations, James said. He ended up here. The hat makes its own decisions. I'll be in Gryffindor, Harry said. He was in Gryffindor. Diagon Alley. They went together, James, Lily, Harry, with Sirius, who had invited himself on the basis that watching Harry get his wand was a formative experience that he was not willing to miss, and who had turned up at 8 in the morning with 2 bags from the bakery and an enormous quantity of enthusiasm. Sirius and James in Diagon Alley were, Harry had long ago concluded, a specific kind of chaos that was greater than the sum of its parts. Individually they were manageable. Together they were the people who had once been asked to leave Flourish and Blots for reasons that neither of them would fully explain, and that Lily described as the broom incident with a tone that foreclosed further questions. I want to look at the new Nimbus, Sirius said, in the direction of quality Quidditch supplies. He needs school supplies, Lily said. He needs a broom. The school provides brooms for first years. School brooms are terrible, Sirius said. James, back me up. School brooms are terrible, James said to Lily's expression. However, Lily agreed. He'll need proper robes, books, cauldron, telescope, scales. James had the list. He always had the list. This was something Harry had noticed about his father. James appeared disorganised, appeared to be moving on instinct and enthusiasm, and consistently had done the research beforehand. The list was in his robes pocket. He had written it out the previous evening, cross-referencing with Lily's notes. I want to see Ollivanders, Harry said. Everyone wanted to see Ollivanders. This was, Harry had come to understand, a ritual rather than a practical matter. You bought your wand from Ollivanders because you bought your wand from Ollivanders. Because the buying of the wand was the entry into the world. Because some things were ceremonies regardless of their practical content. Ollivanders was narrow and dusty and full of the boxes of wands stacked to the ceiling. Ollivander himself appeared from somewhere in the back as they entered, and he looked at Harry with the specific quality of attention that Harry would later associate with people who were seeing more than one thing at once. Mr. Potter, Ollivander said. Yes, Harry said. I wondered when you'd come. Ollivander looked at him, at the scar on his forehead. Something moved in his pale eyes. I sold your parents their wands, you know. Your mother, Willow, 10 1/4 inches, swishy, excellent for charms work. He looked at Lily. Still in use, I take it. Yes, Lily said, and your father, mahogany, 11 inches, pliable, rather more powerful and excellent for transfiguration. He looked at James. Also still in use. Also, yes, James. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Ollivander said. I also remember the wand that did this. He gestured toward Harry's forehead. You, 13.5 inches. Phoenix feather core. A very particular wand. Very particular. He looked at Harry closely. We can expect great things from you, Mr. Potter, but let us find your wand first. Harry's wand took longer to find than most. Not as long as the hat had taken with Tom Riddle, but longer than average. 11 tries, 12, more, a growing collection of rejected wands on the counter, until Ollivander produced one and Harry felt it before he took it properly, the specific electric recognition of something that knew him. Interesting, Ollivander said, watching the shower of red and gold sparks that Harry had produced without meaning to. Very interesting. Holly, 11 inches. Phoenix feather core. He paused. The phoenix who provided this feather gave only one other. Your wand's brother, as it were. He paused again. The one that gave you that scar. The shop was very quiet. Brother wands, James said. Yes, Ollivander said. He looked at Harry, curious, very curious. Harry looked at the wand in his hand, the warm, solid, right feeling of it, the specific knowledge that something had met its match. Thank you, Harry said. Take good care of it, Ollivander said, and be wary of the other. They left the shop. On the street, James put his arm around Harry's shoulders. Just briefly, just the weight of it, the presence. Well, James said. Well, Harry said. We knew it was going to be complicated, James said. You were always going to be complicated. Because of the prophecy, Harry said. He had known about the prophecy since age 9, when his parents had decided that knowing was better than not knowing. The prophecy and the scar and the night at Godric's Hollow, these were his origin story, told to him in full, at an age when he could receive it. Because of who you are, James said. The prophecy is just context. Harry looked at his wand. At the Hollywood and the phoenix feather inside it, the core that connected him to the wand that had killed his parents' friends and destroyed their home and put the scar on his forehead, the wand that had nearly orphaned him. All right, Harry said. Context. James tightened his arm. Sirius is going to buy you a broom, whatever your mother says, he said. I know, Harry said, and I'm going to let him. I know, Harry said again, and smiled. Platform 9 3/4. The platform on September 1st was something Harry had heard about for his entire childhood, and that was, on arrival, exactly what he had expected, and also entirely different from what he had expected, in the way that things you have heard about all your life are always different when they are real. The red steam engine. The noise. The specific, crackling energy of 100 families saying goodbye and 100 students beginning. James and Lily had brought him. Sirius had also come, on the grounds that this was once again a formative experience. Remus had sent a letter because Remus was not in London currently, but had wanted Harry to know he was thinking of him, which was entirely Remus. Harry had the letter in his pocket. He had his trunk. He had his wand. He had Hedwig, his owl, who was white and magnificent and who had been a birthday gift from Sirius, and who had the specific dignity of a creature who understood that she was the best thing in any room she was in. Platform, James said at the barrier. He said it with the quality of someone handing something over. Your turn. Harry walked through the barrier. The platform was on the other side. The train was waiting. His life was on the other side of the barrier, in a specific way that was different from all the previous ways life had been waiting for him. He turned. His parents and Sirius came through. James looked at the train with an expression that Harry could not fully read. It was too many things at once. It was pride and grief and joy and the specific weight of someone who had nearly not been here to see this. He was blinking too much. Dad, Harry said. Yes, James said. He cleared his throat. Yes, all right, you'll write. I'll write, Harry said. Every week. Every week, and if anything, James, Lily said. Not sharply. Gently. I know, James said. Lily crouched slightly so she was at Harry's eye level, which was something she had done since he was very small, and which Harry found simultaneously embarrassing and deeply reassuring. She looked at him with the green eyes that he had inherited, that were his, that had also almost been extinguished on a night he couldn't remember. You're going to be wonderful, she said. You don't know that, Harry said. I know exactly that, Lily said. I have a very good record of being right about things. That's also true, Harry said. She hugged him. Not the crushing to chest James hug, but something more precise. Lily's hugs had always been specific. They held you in a particular way that said, I know exactly where you are, and I am not letting go until I am ready. She held on for a moment. Then she let go. Stepped back. Sirius hugged him next, which was the closest approximation to James's hug that existed, and which knocked his glasses off again. Oi, Harry said. Write to me too, Sirius said. I'll write a group letter. Don't you dare, James said behind him. Separate letters. Separate letters, Sirius agreed. Harry picked up his glasses, put them back on, looked at the three people on the platform and the train behind him. Okay, he said. I'm going. Yes. James said. Go. Okay. He went. He found a compartment. He put his trunk in the overhead rack and Hedwig on the seat beside him, and he sat down, and the train began to move, and through the window he watched his parents and Sirius on the platform getting smaller. James had his arm around Lily. Sirius had his hand in the air, waving. Lily was not waving, she was just watching, with the specific, steady quality that was Lily watching something that mattered. Harry pressed his hand briefly against the glass. Not a wave, an acknowledgement. The platform disappeared. He turned back to the compartment. A boy with red hair and freckles was standing in the doorway. He had a smudge of something on his nose, and the general air of someone who had been running. Is it all right if I sit here? The boy said. Everywhere else is full. Yes, Harry said. Come in. The boy sat across from him. They looked at each other. Ron Weasley, the boy said. Harry Potter, Harry said. Ron's eyes went briefly to Harry's forehead, to the scar that was not quite visible under his fringe. Then he looked away, which Harry noted as the sign of someone who had been told not to look. Someone who had been told about Harry Potter and had been given specific instructions about manners. Are your parents, Ron started. Alive? Yes, Harry said. Both of them. I know, Ron said. My mum and dad know them, James Potter and Lily. Mum cried when she heard about Godric's Hollow. He paused. I mean, not cried like they survived. She cried because of how close it was. Harry had spent his life having this conversation in various forms. The version where people expressed relief that his parents had survived, combined with the unspoken shadow of what had not quite happened. He had gotten quite good at navigating it. It was close, he said. Yeah. Ron was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry. That's probably a weird thing to talk about straight away. It's fine, Harry said. It's the thing everyone wants to ask about. Better to have it up front. Ron looked at him. Do you mind? When people ask? Harry considered this honestly. Not usually, he said. I mind when people use it as the only interesting thing about me. As if I'm just... He paused. As if the scar is the whole thing. Ron nodded. I know what that's like, sort of, he said. I've got 6 siblings. I'm always one of the Weasleys. Is that worse than the boy who lived? Different kind of worse, Ron said. They looked at each other. Then both of them smiled, which was the beginning of everything important. Do you play chess? Ron said. Dad taught me, Harry said. Are you good? No, Harry said. He kept letting me win for about 3 years, and by the time I found out, the habits were wrong. Ron grinned. "I'll beat you badly, and it'll fix the habits." "All right," Harry said. "But not today. I want to watch the countryside." "Fair enough," Ron said, and sat back. The Scottish countryside moved past the windows. They rode in companionable silence, and then talked. And then were silent again. Hermione Granger knocked on their compartment door an hour later, looking for a lost toad Neville Longs, and stayed after the toad was found because the conversation was interesting, and by the time they arrived at Hogsmeade Station, the three of them had established the specific early geometry of a friendship that would prove to be one of the most important things any of them ever did. The sorting. Harry had known about the sorting. He had known about the hat, not from the books exactly, but from James, who had described the experience with the specific, affectionate inaccuracy of someone whose memory had been filtered through 20 years of retelling. "It'll know you before you sit down," James had told him. "It's been listening for 1,000 years. It knows what it's looking at." The hat came down over Harry's ears and found, what? A mind that had been loved. That was the primary fact. The most present fact, the thing that the hat encountered first, and that was different from most minds in the way that warmth is different from cold. Not just different in kind, but different in temperature. Harry Potter's mind was warm, not uncomplicated, not simple, not easy, not without the specific anxious shadows that came from growing up knowing there was something out there that had tried to end him before he could remember, but warm. The warmth was there first. "Ah," the hat said. "Both your parents' son." "Yes," Harry said. "Your mother's intelligence, your father's instinct. The specific combination of those two, which is, I won't say unique, I've seen variations, but distinctive." A pause. "Where do you want to go, Gryffindor?" Harry said. "Of course." "But why?" Harry thought about this, about the honest answer. "Because it's where they were," he thought, "and because I think I'm like them. Not because they were there, because the qualities that put them there are mine too." "The courage," the hat said. "Yes," Harry said. "The specific kind. The kind that isn't reckless. The kind that's deliberate courage," the hat said. "Yes, that's your mother's. Your father's is different. Your father's was always the charging kind, the ask questions later kind. You have more of hers." "I know," Harry said. He'd say the same thing. "He probably does say the same thing," the hat said, with a quality that was amused. "All right, Mr. Potter, I know where you belong. I've known since before you sat down." "Gryffindor." The table erupted. Harry walked to it and sat down and looked up at the high table, at the teachers, at Dumbledore, who was watching him with the blue eyes that contained both warmth and something more complicated, at Professor Snape, who was watching him with an expression that Harry could not read. He had met Snape twice before, once at a ministry function when he was 7, once at Hogwarts when he'd visited at 9. Snape had looked at him the same way both times, not with hostility exactly, but with the specific quality of someone who was performing a very careful assessment and who did not want you to know they were performing it. Harry had asked his mother about it afterward. Lily had been quiet for a moment, and then she had said, "Professor Snape and I were friends when we were young. And then we weren't. It's complicated." "Does he not like me?" Harry had asked. "He doesn't know you," Lily had said. "There's a difference." Harry looked at Snape from the Gryffindor table. Snape looked back. The expression was the same one, the careful assessment. Harry gave a small nod. Snape's expression shifted fractionally into something that was not acknowledgement exactly, but was its functional equivalent. "It's complicated," his mother had said. Harry filed this under, things that would become clearer over time. The first year at Hogwarts was the year of the Philosopher's Stone, though Harry did not know it was the year of the stone until well into it. What he knew? First, the castle, which was everything James's stories had been and more. The weight of it, the magic that lived in the stones, the specific layered quality of a place that had been worked on for centuries and that contained more than it showed. He loved it immediately, in the way you love things that match the version you have been carrying. Not because it was exactly what he expected, but because the real thing and the imagined thing overlapped in the way they only do when someone has told you about a place with real love. He also knew Quidditch, which he had known about for as long as he could remember, but which at Hogwarts was something else. It was a structure, a team, a thing that organised time and effort and competitive intensity. Professor McGonagall recruited him for the Gryffindor team in October. After watching him fly in Transfiguration class, he had flown to retrieve Neville's Remembrall, which Malfoy had thrown, and the recruitment produced in Harry the specific electric feeling of being asked for in a way that had nothing to do with the scar. Not the boy who lived. Gryffindor's new seeker. Those were different things. And the difference mattered. Ron watched his first game from the stands and shouted himself hoarse. Hermione watched his first game from the stands and performed a shield charm against a hexed broom that she had figured out from library research in between shouting instructions. The broom in question had been jinxed by Professor Quirrell, whose double nature as a vessel for Voldemort's remnant soul Harry had suspected and was not yet able to prove. He wrote to James about the Quidditch. The letter came back the same day he'd sent it, James's handwriting sprawling across 3 pages, getting more exclamatory toward the end. Lily's postscript at the bottom, in her smaller, precise hand, wonderful. Also, be careful. Love, Mum, Quirrell. The difference in Harry's first year was not dramatic. He still noticed Quirrell's inconsistencies. He still noticed the wrongness of the smell from the turban, the wrongness of the behaviour, the specific, wrongly calibrated quality of the man's fear responses. He had grown up with parents who had faced Voldemort directly and who spoke about it with him, and the speaking had given him a framework that most first years didn't have. He wrote to his father about it. Not because he was frightened, he was, somewhat, but that was manageable, but because James had told him more than once that information shared was information processed, and that the specific danger of carrying something alone was that you started believing your own worst-case interpretations. James wrote back. The letter was longer than usual and had, at several points, been rewritten. Harry could see the places where words had been crossed out and replaced with different ones, less alarmed ones. James's letter said, "Tell McGonagall. Tell Dumbledore. Not because you can't handle it, you obviously can, but because they have context you don't have, and shared information is more powerful than individual information. I know it feels like you should solve this yourself. It doesn't feel that way because you're arrogant. It feels that way because you have something to prove, because you grew up knowing the story, knowing the night at Godric's Hollow, knowing you were nearly the centre of something terrible, and there is a part of you that wants to be the person who faces it rather than the person who hands it to an adult. I know this because I had the same thing. So did Sirius. So did your mum. In her own way. Here is what I learned. The people who hand things to adults are not weaker. They are smarter. Because the adults have resources. Use the resources. Also, separately, if Voldemort is actually involved in this, you are 11 years old, Harry James, and you will tell Dumbledore immediately. Harry smiled at the letter. He could hear James's voice in every sentence, including the bit where the formal name came out. He told McGonagall. McGonagall told Dumbledore. The situation was managed differently than in a world where Harry went in alone, with Dumbledore present, with the stone evacuated by other means, with Quirrell's Voldemort problem addressed by the full force of Hogwarts protections rather than by an 11-year-old facing it in the dark. Harry was not therefore in the hospital wing for 3 days in June. He was in the Great Hall eating supper and watching the end-of-year ceremony and feeling, in the specific way he had felt it many times since October, the particular quality of his life at Hogwarts, that it was his own thing, separate from the story, and that the story was something he carried rather than something that carried him. "Your dad's going to be insufferable about this," Ron said beside him. "He's already insufferable about the Quidditch," Harry said. "This'll be more." "Probably," he wrote the letter home that evening. James's response came with a postscript from Lily. I told him about the letter to McGonagall. He said he was proud of you. He said it 17 times in approximately 4 minutes, and a postscript from Sirius. "Your dad cried. I'm not allowed to tell you that. Please don't tell him I told you." Harry put the letter in the box under his bed, where he kept the ones he read again. Second year. The Chamber of Secrets. This was harder. The chamber was harder because it had a specific personal weight. Because in the world where Harry had parents, the history of the chamber and the basilisk and the heir of Slytherin connected not to an orphan discovering his past, but to a son discovering something about the war his parents had survived. Tom Riddle's memory ghost, writing on the wall. "I am Lord Voldemort," the specific, visceral reality of seeing those words in a school corridor. Harry wrote to his father differently that night. Not the informational letter, not the "here is what I'm observing and here is what I want to know." A different letter. A short one. "Dad," it said. "Do you know about the Chamber of Secrets?" James wrote back. The letter came the next morning. It was very long, and it was the kind of careful that James was capable of when he needed to be. The precision was Lily's, but it was James deploying it, which meant the precision had extra effort in it because it wasn't natural. The letter explained what James knew about the chamber from first principles, what he had heard, what Dumbledore had told them, what the history of it was, and then it said, "Here is what I want you to know. Whoever opened the chamber 50 years ago, the person who became Voldemort, the person who destroyed everything they could destroy, started as a student at Hogwarts. Just like you. Same castle, same corridors, same teachers. And he made choices that took him in one direction, and you are in a different place making different choices. The castle doesn't belong to him because he was once in it. You belong to it as much as he ever did. Also, don't go into the chamber without telling someone. I am serious about this. I am James Sirius Potter about this. Love, Dad. P.S. Mum says to tell Hermione that the polyjuice research she's apparently doing, McGonagall may have mentioned this, is impressive, but legally grey, and also medically risky if the hair sample isn't human. Harry wrote back, "Tell Mum she doesn't have to know everything." Lily's response came in a separate letter, "I know everything. Tell Hermione to add lace-wing flies earlier in the brewing process, the chamber itself." Harry went. He didn't go alone. That was the difference in this version. Ron was with him, and the preparation was better, and when they descended through the pipe into the chamber, Harry had the specific, strange experience of descending into the place that was connected to the worst thing that had ever tried to happen to his family. The memory ghost of Tom Riddle. Young, handsome, constructed from 50 years of a diary, standing in the chamber and looking at Harry with the particular assessment of someone who had anticipated this meeting for a long time. "Harry Potter," Riddle said. "Tom Riddle," Harry said. Something shifted in Riddle's expression. "You know my name." "My parents survived the war your future self started," Harry said. "We've discussed the history at length. Fascinating," Riddle said, with the quality of someone who found it genuinely fascinating and also dangerous. "And knowing the history, knowing what I became, does that frighten you?" Harry thought about this, about the honest answer. "Yes," he said, "not you specifically. The fact that a person could go in that direction. The fact that the path exists." Riddle looked at him. Something moved in the constructed face, something that was a memory of a person who had once been capable of genuine curiosity. "And your parents' survival," he said. "How do you carry that?" "Gratefully," Harry said. "And carefully. The way you carry something you know you almost didn't have." The basilisk came. Harry called it in Parseltongue, an ability he had been aware of since age 7, and that his parents had made sure he understood was hereditary rather than a mark of dark character, and he did not destroy it immediately. He negotiated with it. He sent it to sleep. The Sword of Gryffindor, which Fawkes brought in a moment of specific phoenix magic, was used in the end against Riddle himself. Not the basilisk, but the diary, the fang, the destruction of the piece of Voldemort's soul that had been living in a notebook for 50 years. Ginny was safe. The chamber was sealed. Harry and Ron came up out of the pipe into Moaning Myrtle's bathroom and sat on the floor for a long time. "You negotiated with a basilisk," Ron said. "It's a 1,000-year-old creature that's been in a chamber alone," Harry said. "It deserved a conversation. Your parents are going to have a lot to say about this." "Yes," Harry said. "But the right things. They had the right things to say." James's letter about the basilisk contained the words "extraordinary," "terrifying," and "please don't do that again" in quick succession. Lily's letter was shorter and more precise and ended with, "I'm proud of you." The negotiation was the right instinct. Your instinct is usually right. Trust it. He carried this one in his pocket for most of the summer. Third year. Sirius? Third year was the year Harry learned things about Sirius that he did not know, and the learning was different when the person you were learning about was your godfather who came to Sunday dinners and who was currently in the world and reachable. Sirius was not in Azkaban. In this version of the world, Sirius had never gone to Azkaban. He had been at Godric's Hollow on the night of October 31st, had been there with James and Lily in the hours after, had testified to Dumbledore and the Wizengamot about Peter's betrayal. Peter had been hunted, had not been caught. He had escaped, become Scabbers, been taken in by the Weasleys in the chaos of the immediate aftermath. But the story had been known. Sirius was not a fugitive. Sirius was the godfather who came to Sunday dinners and who had for 11 years been carrying the specific guilt of 3 weeks' worth of not being certain enough. The revelation about Scabbers happened at Hogwarts in third year. Ron's rat, who was not a rat, who was Peter Pettigrew, who had been living in Ron's room for 12 years, who was here, who was reachable. Lupin helped. Lupin was the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor this year, a piece of good fortune that Harry had not expected and that he received with the specific joy of encountering someone he had known his whole life in an unexpected context. Lupin in the classroom was different from Lupin at James and Lily's table, more formal, more precise. The particular Lupin precision that came from having been a prefect and from having spent 30 years treating knowledge as the most important available resource. He also taught Harry the Patronus. Not because of Dementors exactly, there were Dementors at Hogwarts this year, positioned at the gates by a ministry that was still nervous about the remnant Voldemort problem, but because the Patronus was, in Lupin's view, something Harry should know. The memory Harry used for the Patronus was specific. He had been given advice about it. His mother had told him to find the memory that was most uncomplicated, most purely itself, without any shadow in it. He thought about it for a long time. He chose the flying, his father throwing him up in the spring morning and catching him. The weightlessness, the laughter, the certainty of the catching. The stag that emerged from his wand was enormous, silver and specific. It circled the classroom once and then stood and looked at Harry with the patient, bright eyes of a creature that recognized something. Lupin looked at the Patronus. His expression was complicated in a way that Harry noticed. Prongs, Harry said. Yes, Lupin said. His voice was rough. That's Dad's animagus form, Harry said. Yes, Lupin said again. They looked at the stag together. The stag looked back at both of them with the silver patience of something that was more than memory and less than presence. That's the right memory, Lupin said. You found exactly the right one. My mum said to find the one without any shadow, Harry said. Your mother is extremely right about most things, Lupin said, as she has been since she was 11 years old and was almost certainly right about something the moment she arrived. Harry smiled. She'd say the same about you. She'd be more accurate, Lupin said. He looked at the stag, which was fading. Your father would, he stopped. He would have found it funny that it looks like him. He did find it funny, Harry said. I wrote and told him. He wrote back and said it was the most correct thing the universe had ever done. Lupin laughed. The real laugh, the involuntary one. Yes, he said. That sounds right. Peter. They caught him. In the shrieking shack at the end of third year with the specific complications of Lupin's lycanthropy and the full moon and the particular, terrible intimacy of confronting someone who had been living in your household for 12 years in the body of a rat. Ron was there. His arm was broken. His rat was a war criminal. The specific texture of this for Ron was something Harry watched with the specific helplessness of someone who cannot take back what has been discovered. I'm sorry, Harry said to Ron. Afterward, it's not your fault, Ron said. His arm was in a sling. I know. I'm sorry anyway. Ron was quiet. He was just a rat, Ron said. He was just a pet. I didn't particularly love him, but he was yours, Harry said. Yeah, Ron said. And he wasn't. Harry sat beside him. They were in the hospital wing. Hermione was on Ron's other side. The three of them occupied the specific territory of people who have been through something together and who are processing it at different speeds. My dad's going to be here in an hour, Harry said. He and Sirius are coming. Peter's in ministry custody now. They'll want to. I know, Ron said. I know. He looked at his broken arm. My mum's going to be upset about Scabbers. Your mum's going to be more upset about your arm, Hermione said. Both, Ron said. She's good at both, simultaneously. James and Sirius arrived. The reunion between Sirius and James in the hospital wing, Sirius, who had been waiting 12 years for this specific closure, for Peter to be caught and publicly named, for the story to be finally and officially corrected, was not a small thing. Harry watched his father hold his godfather with the specific, complete embrace of two people who have been through the worst of it together and who are not embarrassed to show what that costs. It cost quite a lot. They were not embarrassed. Harry looked at Ron and Hermione. My family is a lot, he said. Your family is brilliant, Hermione said. Your family is loud, Ron said, with the affection of someone who also has a loud family and who considers this a feature. All three, Harry said. Fourth year. The Triwizard Tournament. Harry's name came out of the Goblet of Fire, and the great hall went quiet, and Harry sat very still because the specific quality of the silence was the quality of a room full of people recalibrating. He had not put his name in. He was 14. He was below the age requirement. Someone had put his name in on his behalf, and the someone had done it for reasons that Harry understood in the first 30 seconds to be connected to something much larger than a tournament. He walked to the antechamber where the other champions were waiting. He answered Dumbledore's questions. He watched Snape watch him from across the room with the expression that Harry had been cataloguing for 3 years, and that he had come to understand through his mother's careful, partial explanations and through his own observation, was the expression of someone who had loved Lily Evans very much in a way that had not been simple and that had not ended cleanly. He wrote to his parents that night, He did not write "I'm scared" because he was not sure that was exactly right. He wrote, "I need you to tell me what you think is happening." James's response came the next morning. It was not the letter Harry had expected. James's letter was short and had been clearly written quickly and then revised, because Harry could see the places where sentences had been rewritten. The final version said, "Someone put your name in the goblet to force you into a lethal competition. This is an attempt to harm you. This may be connected to Voldemort's remnant. We believe the remnant has been regaining coherence over the past year, and your being in a competition that allows for accidental death is a mechanism. I am coming to Hogsmeade. I need to speak with Dumbledore. Don't go into any task without preparation, and don't go anywhere alone. I love you. Be careful." Lily's letter came an hour later. It was longer. It explained the mechanics of the unforgivable contract, the specific history of the tournament, the ways the tasks could be survived. It was research. Lily under pressure produced research, which was one of the most recognisable and useful things about her. James came to Hogsmeade. He sat across from Harry in the Hog's Head on a Saturday morning in October, and Harry looked at his father's face, the face that was usually performing warmth or humour or enthusiasm or some combination, and saw it unperformed. Just his father's face. Just the fear that his father carried, in the specific way that a person carries fear when the fear is for their child and they cannot take it from their child. "Tell me everything you know," James said. Harry told him. James listened. At the end, he was quiet for a moment. "You're going to have to do this," James said. "The tournament contract means..." "I know," Harry said, "and Dumbledore can't, I know." "So," James looked at his hands. "So we prepare. The way your mother prepares, the research, the training, the specific work of being ready for everything we can anticipate." He looked up. "And we don't do it alone. I have Ron and Hermione," Harry said. "You have us," James said. "You have me and your mother and Sirius and Remus and everyone who survived the last war who will help you with this one." He paused. "This is not the last war. This is the beginning of something. And we're not sending you into it alone." They sat in the Hog's Head. The October light came through the grimy windows. Outside, Hogsmeade was the quiet small town quiet of a Saturday morning. "I'm scared," Harry said. He said it to his father because his father was the person he could say it to. "Good," James said. "Fear is appropriate. You're in danger and fear is the appropriate response." He paused. "It doesn't mean you're going to run." "No," Harry said. "I know," James said. "I know you're not going to run." They had breakfast. James told Harry 3 stories about the Triwizard Tournament that had no bearing on the current situation but that were funny and that were exactly what Harry needed. They walked back through Hogsmeade together, and James put his arm around Harry's shoulders and Harry let him. And for a while it was just the two of them walking, with the October morning around them and the mountains above Hogsmeade going blue in the distance. "I'll be all right," Harry said. "Yes," James said. "You will. You sound sure." "I am sure," James said. "I have excellent data. The tasks. The preparation. The dragon, which Harry flew around on the firebolt, which James had bought him in second year against Lily's specific and clearly stated objections, and which was the best broom available, and which James had noted was not technically a school supply, but was a life skill. The second task, the lake, the gillyweed, Ron retrieved from the depths. The maze. The maze was different because Harry had been prepared for the maze to be a trap. He had been told in a letter from his mother in May that the pattern of events, the specific configuration of the tournament, the modified goblet, the tasks that escalated in a particular way, was consistent with something being built toward. A specific destination. A trap with a specific trigger. The third task, Lily had written, is the portkey. Not the maze, the exit point. Whatever exits the maze last goes somewhere. Make sure you know where the exits are before you go in. Harry had shared this with Cedric Diggory, who was his co-champion from Hogwarts. Cedric, who was honest and decent and 17 years old, had listened and had taken the information seriously and had adjusted his plan accordingly. They entered the maze together. They navigated it together, when it made sense to navigate together, and separately when the maze required it. Harry reached the Triwizard Cup first. He waited for Cedric. They touched it together. The Portkey activated. They arrived in a graveyard. Peter Pettigrew was not there. Peter was in Ministry custody, had been in Ministry custody for a year, was serving a sentence that was never going to be long enough, but that was at least occurring. The specific configuration of the Dark Lord's resurrection plan, which had required Peter's hand, Peter's body, Peter's presence, was disrupted. The plan had adapted. There was a different Death Eater in the graveyard. There was still a cauldron. There was still a body waiting. Harry could feel it, could feel the specific electrical wrongness of the place, the accumulated dark magic, the preparation, the waiting. He grabbed Cedric's arm. "Run," he said. "What now?" Harry said. "We need to get to the cup and get out." They ran. The Death Eaters in the graveyard had not yet fully emerged from concealment. The timing was off. The plan disrupted by Harry's not being alone. And Harry and Cedric reached the cup together and activated it together and arrived back in the Hogwarts grounds with the maze behind them and the sky above, and Harry's heart hitting the inside of his chest like something trying to escape. Cedric looked at him. "What was that?" "Voldemort's resurrection attempt," Harry said. "We just disrupted it." Cedric stared. "How do you know?" "My parents told me what to look for," Harry said. "The graveyard, the cauldron, the timing." He paused. "It's not over. He'll try again. But not tonight." The Triwizard Cup was sitting on the ground between them. Around them, the Hogwarts grounds were quiet. In the stands, the crowd was still watching the maze. "Are you all right?" Cedric said. "Yes," Harry said. And then, "Thank you for taking the information seriously." In the maze. "Of course," Cedric said. He looked toward the castle. "We should tell Dumbledore." "Yes," Harry said. "We should." They walked together toward the castle. Behind them, the maze waited in the dark. In the graveyard in Little Hangleton, something that had been prepared was not yet used, was still forming, still gathering, still waiting for a night that worked. The war was coming. But not tonight. 5th year. The Ministry's denial. Umbridge. Voldemort gathering strength. The Ministry under Fudge had decided that Voldemort's return was a fiction, a story that Harry Potter told, supported by his parents and Dumbledore, whose motives were naturally suspect. The specific institutional machinery of denial was in full operation, and Harry watched it from inside Hogwarts with a frustration that was partly personal and partly political, and that the specific combination of James and Lily had equipped him to understand. James, who had read the Prophet article, had written a letter to the Minister for Magic that was 7 pages long, and that Harry had never seen, but that Lily, with a specific expression, had described as thorough. The Ministry's response had been a press release suggesting that James Potter's trauma from the events of 1981 had perhaps affected his judgment. Harry had written back to his father after reading the Ministry's press release. His letter said, "They're doing the thing you described. The institutional thing. The protect the status quo by discrediting the source thing." James's reply was very short. "Yes. This is what institutions do. Don't let it make you doubt what you know. You know what you know." The Dar formed. Harry taught it the way he had been taught. Not with the specific drama of someone discovering they were a teacher, but with the steady competence of someone who had been thinking about defense since he was a child, and whose parents had given him, from the beginning, the tools to understand why the subject mattered. Professor Umbridge was a different kind of problem from Voldemort. She was the problem of institutions that had decided that certain things were inconvenient and that the people pointing at the inconvenient things needed to be managed. Harry had met this problem in smaller forms. His mother had a word for it, suppression, and had, over years, described the mechanisms of it with the clear-eyed assessment of someone who had watched the wizarding world manage itself badly for her entire adult life. The way through institutional suppression, Lily had told him when he was 9 and had been told by a teacher that he was too advanced for his class and should stop asking questions, is to make yourself undeniable. Not louder. Undeniable, the facts eventually become too clear to suppress. Umbridge was eventually undeniable. The events of the year, the DA, the break-in at the Ministry, the battle in the Department of Mysteries, produced a public confrontation between the truth and the suppression that the suppression could not survive. The Department of Mysteries. This was the hardest year, not because of Umbridge. Umbridge was manageable, was institutional, was the kind of problem that responded to the tools Harry had been given for institutional problems. The Department of Mysteries was harder because it was personal. The vision. Sirius in the Department of Mysteries. Harry believed it. For the minutes it took him to understand it was false, with the specific, gut-level conviction of someone who loves a person enough to be manipulated by them. Hermione was the one who pressed. "How do you know?" she said. "How do you know it's real?" Harry looked at her, at the question. Felt the anger, the "how dare you suggest it isn't real" anger, and underneath the anger, the cold space of doubt. "Ring Sirius," he said. They couldn't reach Sirius from Umbridge's office, but Harry held on to the question. How do you know it's real? He held it against the vision, against the conviction, against the specific fear of Sirius in danger. He wrote a short message in the enchanted coins the Dar used, sent it to the one person not at Hogwarts who could check. "Sirius, are you safe?" The reply came 9 minutes later. "Yes, what's wrong? Who is this?" "Wait, Harry?" The trap sprung empty. The Death Eaters who had arranged for the vision got something different. A Hogwarts student who arrived at the Department of Mysteries with his friends and was not driven by blind panic, but by the specific, deliberate plan of someone who had confirmed the information before acting. The battle still happened. People were still hurt. Sirius still came, with the Order, because Harry had contacted the Order before entering the Ministry, because that was what you did with the resources available to you. Dumbledore still came. The veil did not take Sirius. This was the difference that Sirius being alive already made. The difference of not being trapped in Azkaban for 12 years, of coming to the fight with the specific preparedness of someone who had been in the Order for 20 years rather than as an escaped fugitive. Bellatrix's curse hit him. He went down. He was not dead. He was not dead. Harry stood over him in the Department of Mysteries with his wand raised, and the battle happening around him and the specific, complete relief of someone who has almost lost something irreplaceable and who has not. Sirius was breathing. He was unconscious and his face was grey, and he would be in St. Mungo's for 2 weeks afterward. But he was breathing. "He's all right," Hermione said. She had checked. Stunned, and the curse hit his ribs. "But he's..." "I know," Harry said. "I know." He stayed beside Sirius until the Aurors came. He did not think about Voldemort or prophecies or the war. He thought about Sunday dinners and the broom and the separate letters and the hand in the air on the platform. He thought about how much he would have lost. He held this. He did not look away from it. 6th year. The Horcruxes. The architecture of the war. Dumbledore told him in 6th year, in the private sessions, the sessions that Harry had been having with Dumbledore since 2nd year, not always about the war, not always about the prophecy, but consistently about the larger questions, the questions of what the world was and what Harry was in it. Dumbledore showed him the memories, the orphanage, the gaunts, the The specific history of how a person became Lord Voldemort, assembled from fragments, presented with the particular care of someone who understood that knowing the enemy was not the same as becoming them. He made Horcruxes, Dumbledore said. Harry had been expecting something. Not exactly this. Soul anchors, he said. Yes, Dumbledore said. Each one a piece of himself, removed and housed in an object. Each one that exists means he cannot die in the ordinary way. How many? Dumbledore looked at him. The blue eyes, steady and complicated. That is the question, he said. I believe 7. I believe we have destroyed 2. He paused. I believe there is a 3rd. In your scar. The room was very quiet. Harry had perhaps known since he was 9, and had first started thinking seriously about the night at Godric's Hollow, and the specific strange quality of the connection between himself and Voldemort, that there was something in the scar that was not simply a wound. Something that resonated. Something that lived. Yes, Harry said. Dumbledore looked at him. You don't seem surprised. I've suspected, Harry said, since I was young. I asked my mum about the scar connection, the way it hurts when Voldemort is near, the way I sometimes see things through it. He said the answers were in what happened that night, and that when I was ready to know the full answers, we'd find them. And? Are you ready? Dumbledore said. Tell me, Harry said. Dumbledore told him the full mechanics of sacrificial magic. The accidental creation of the Scar Horcrux. The specific terrible logic of what it meant that to fully destroy Voldemort, the piece of him inside Harry would need to be destroyed too. And the only thing powerful enough to destroy a Horcrux was the killing curse, or extreme magical destruction. And the killing curse directed at Harry, in the presence of Lily's sacrificial protection, would destroy the Horcrux and not Harry. The protection, Harry said. Your mother's love, Dumbledore said. Which is present in you. Which has been present in you since she performed the sacrifice. The killing curse striking you will find only the Horcrux, the foreign piece, and destroy it. And the rest of me, Harry said, will survive, Dumbledore said. I believe this. I have studied the mechanics of sacrificial magic for 6 years. I believe this. Harry sat with it. In Dumbledore's office, with the silver instruments clicking softly and the portraits watching and the evening light moving across the floor. My parents don't know, he said. No, I need to tell them. Dumbledore was quiet. This is your choice, he said. Your information. I need to tell them, Harry said again. They have a right to know. Yes, Dumbledore said. They do. He told them that weekend. Not in a letter. This was not the kind of thing that went in a letter. He asked if he could come home for the weekend, and Lily said yes immediately. And when he arrived, he sat at the kitchen table in the house in the Highlands with James and Lily across from him, and he told them everything. The silence after was the longest silence he had sat in since coming home. James was looking at the table. His hands were very still. James's hands were never still. They were always part of how he talked, part of how he expressed things. The stillness was frightening. Lily was looking at Harry. Her expression was the expression Harry had seen at moments throughout his life when she was working hard, not on a problem but on herself, on the management of something that was trying to exceed its container. The protection holds, she said. Finally, Dumbledore believes it does, Harry said. The protection holds, she said again, not repeating herself, stating a fact. I know the mechanics of what I did on that night. I have studied them. I know what I gave you. She looked at Harry. It holds. James looked up. His eyes were wet. He did not say anything for a moment. You're not alone in this, James said. Whatever it means, whatever the sequence is, you're not alone in it. I know, Harry said. You have us, James said. And the Order. And Dumbledore. And Dad, Harry said. James stopped. I know, Harry said. I know I have you. That's not the part I'm afraid of. What part are you afraid of? James said. Harry looked at his parents, at the table, the familiar kitchen, the house in the Highlands that had been home for 15 years, at the specific, irreplaceable texture of the life he had. That it matters too much, Harry said. Having things to come back to, having people. I'm afraid it'll make me hesitate. James looked at him for a long moment. It won't, James said. Listen to me. Having everything to come back to is not a weakness. It's the reason. It's what you're protecting. You don't hesitate for it. You do it for it. He paused. When I stood in the hallway at Godric's Hollow, I wasn't fighting because I was brave. I was fighting because your mother was upstairs with you, and that was not going to end if I could stop it. The love is not a limitation. The love is the engine. Harry sat with this. The love is the engine, he said. Yes, James said. They sat at the kitchen table for a long time. Eventually Lily made tea. Eventually James told a story from the war that was not about fear but about the specific absurdity of trying to maintain any kind of normal life while people you love are in danger, and Harry laughed. And then they were all three laughing, in the kitchen, in the evening, in the way you laugh when the only alternative is something else entirely. Snape, in 6th year, Harry understood Snape. Not in the dramatic sense, not the revelation. The understanding came slowly, assembled from years of small observations, from his mother's careful partial explanations, from the specific quality of Snape's behaviour in potions class, which had always had an edge of something that Harry had categorised as complicated rather than hostile. He went to Snape's office in March. Knocked, waited, entered. Snape looked at him across the desk with the assessment expression. "Mr. Potter?" Snape said. "Professor," Harry said. "I want to ask you something." "You may ask." "My mother told me that you were friends when you were young," Harry said, "and that you weren't anymore, and that it was complicated." He paused. "I've spent 6 years watching you look at me like you're trying to decide something, and I want to know what you're deciding." Snape was very still. "That is an impertinent question," he said. "Yes," Harry said. A pause. Snape looked at him, really looked at him, not the assessment, not the cataloguing, but the direct look that Harry had seen very rarely. "You have her eyes," Snape said. "I know," Harry said. "She told me you used to mention it." "I was not," Snape stopped. "When?" "When I was about 9, Harry said. "I asked her about you. She told me you used to say it when you saw me. In passing." Snape was quiet for a long moment. "The question of what I'm deciding," he said, eventually, "the honest answer is that I have been deciding, for 15 years, whether you are your father or your mother." "And?" Harry said. "You are both," Snape said. "In ways that are," he paused. "In ways that are not always easy for me. Your father and I were not. I know you hated each other," Harry said. Snape looked at him with something that might have been surprise. "Your parents told you that." "My dad told me," Harry said. "He was pretty honest about it. He said you were both dreadful to each other in ways you probably both regret, and that he regrets his part in it." "James Potter expressed regret," Snape said. "He does," Harry said. "He said it in the context of explaining why I shouldn't judge people by their worst moments." Something happened on Snape's face. Something that was not his usual expression, that was underneath the usual expression, that Harry got a very brief look at before it was managed. "Your father," Snape said, carefully, "is a better man than he was." "He'd probably say the same about you," Harry said, in the became better with age sense. Snape looked at him. "What do you want, Mr. Potter?" Snape said. Harry thought about it. "To not have you looking at me like you're still deciding something for another year," he said. "I'm his son, and I'm her son, and I'm my own person, and I'd like to be in your potions class as my own person instead of as a symbol of something unresolved." Snape was very still. "That is," he said, "the most direct and accurate assessment anyone has given me in some years." "My mum is direct," Harry said. "It's genetic." Something moved on Snape's face that was the closest thing to amusement Harry had seen there. "I will," Snape said, "slowly endeavour to assess you on your own merits." "That's all I wanted," Harry said. "Thank you, Professor." He left. In the corridor, he stopped and breathed for a moment. He wrote to his mother that evening, "I talked to Snape. I think it went all right. He said you were direct." Lily's response came the next morning. It said, simply, "I know. He wrote to me last night. He said you were also direct. He said it was familiar." Harry smiled at the letter for a long time. The year Dumbledore died. Snape killed Dumbledore on the tower. Harry knew. Had known by the time it happened that this was the agreement, had been told, not everything, but enough. Dumbledore had, in the months after their Horcrux conversation, begun to trust Harry with more of the full picture, and part of the full picture was Snape's position and Snape's mission, and the specific, devastating function that Snape was going to be asked to perform. He agreed, Dumbledore had told him. He agreed because it was the right move, and because he had paused. "Because your mother asked him to." Harry had sat with this. "She knows," Harry said. "She has known since last summer," Dumbledore said. She argued against it. And she understood, ultimately, that it was necessary. And she asked Snape to do it with the specific weight of that understanding. Harry had not told his parents after that conversation, had carried it alone for 6 months, which was the hardest carrying he had done, because he had spent his life not carrying things alone, and the carrying alone was specifically difficult in a way he hadn't expected. After Dumbledore died, he told them. He sat at the kitchen table in the house in the Highlands, and he told them the whole architecture of it, the Horcruxes, Snape's position, the mission Snape was performing, the end that Dumbledore had arranged for himself on his own terms rather than on Voldemort's. James was very quiet through this, quieter than Harry had ever seen him. When Harry finished, James said, "Dumbledore arranged his own death." "Yes," Harry said, "because the curse from the ring was killing him anyway, and because Draco Malfoy would have been ordered to do it, and because Snape's cover needed." "I know why," James said. "I understand why." He paused. "He should have told us." "He didn't want," Harry started. "He should have told us," James said again. Not angry. Something more than angry and more than sad. The specific register of someone who has been making decisions based on incomplete information and who has just found out. Lily put her hand on James's arm. She looked at Harry. "You carried this alone for 6 months." "Yes," Harry said. "That was too long," Lily said. "I know. You know you can—" "I know, Mum," Harry said. "I know I can tell you things." "This one," he paused. "This one I needed to sit with first." Lily looked at him for a long moment. Something in her expression was the expression she had when she was recognizing something in Harry that came from James, the specific private carrier tendency, the sitting with it before sharing tendency. "Yes," she said. "All right." James was looking at the table. Then at Harry. "What happens now?" he said. "I finish it," Harry said. "The Horcruxes. I know where most of them are. I have Ron and Hermione. We go." "Not alone," James said. "Not alone," Harry said, "but also not with the Order visible, because the Order being visible is how Death Eaters know where to look. We go quietly. We go carefully. And," he paused, "and when it's time, I'll come back." James looked at him. "When it's time for what?" Harry looked at his parents, at the kitchen in the Highlands, at the life. "When it's time to do the last thing," he said. He did not elaborate. He didn't need to. He had told them about the Scar Horcrux. They understood the architecture. James's face in that moment, the understanding arriving on his face, the understanding of what the last thing meant, was something Harry would carry for the rest of his life. "Harry," James said. "I'll come back," Harry said. "That's the point. I'll come back." "The protection holds," Harry said. "Mum said it holds. She's right about most things." Lily made a sound. It was a very small sound. She put her hand over her mouth for a moment, briefly, and then took it away and looked at Harry with her green eyes, his eyes, her eyes, with the expression that was not crying, but was the thing that existed just before. "Yes," she said. "I am right about most things." "So," Harry said, "I'll come back." He believed it, not with the certainty of someone who doesn't understand the risk. With the certainty of someone who has done the calculation, who knows the mechanics, who has two parents who survived the worst night and who are sitting across from him right now as the evidence that the worst nights can be survived. "Come back," James said. "Yes," Harry said. I'm not asking," James said. His voice was rough. "I'm telling you. Come back." "Yes," Harry said. "I hear you." They sat together at the kitchen table in the house in the Highlands, the three of them, for the rest of the evening. James eventually told the story about the time in 6th year that Sirius had accidentally turned the entire Gryffindor common room chartreuse and the specific, sustained negotiation with McGonagall that had followed. Lily corrected details at intervals. Harry listened. The evening moved around them, and outside the mountains were dark and the sky was full of stars. Harry went to bed late. He slept well. He always slept well in this house. The hunt. 7 months. The tent and the forests and the specific, grinding, determined work of finding and destroying the things that needed to be found and destroyed. Harry, Ron, and Hermione in the margins of the visible world, carrying the weight of a war that had to be finished in the particular way it had to be finished, which was not loudly, but precisely. Harry wrote to his parents when he could. Not often, the writing created a trace, created risk, but when he could. Short letters, safe, progressing, letters that said the minimum, and that Lily and James received, and that James, according to the letter Sirius managed to get to Harry in December, was wearing a path in the floor of the sitting room with his pacing. Sirius's letter said, "Your mum is the steady one. I won't pretend otherwise. Your dad is a state. He's fine, he knows you're fine, but knowing you're fine and not knowing where you are different things for him, and the different things are keeping him up at night. I'm not telling you this so you'll change anything. I'm telling you because you should know what you're coming home to. Come home." Harry read the letter twice. Then he folded it and put it in the inside pocket of his jacket, which was where he kept the things that needed to be close. The Horcruxes fell one by one, the locket destroyed by Ron with the sword of Gryffindor in a frozen pool. The cup, Hermione and the Basilisk Fang, the diadem, Fiendfire in the Room of Requirement. Nagini was the last external one, and Nagini was at Hogwarts. They were at Hogwarts. The Battle of Hogwarts was happening around them. Harry moved through the battle with the specific, deliberate awareness of someone who has been told what the last step is and who is moving toward it. Not running toward it, moving toward it. The difference was the difference between Sirius's definition of courage, the charge in mind, and Lily's definition, the deliberate mind. Harry had both, from both of them. He was using the second one. He opened the snitch. The resurrection stone fell into his palm, cold, small, marked with the triangular symbol he had learned to recognize. He stood in the forest and looked at it. In another life, the version he had spent his whole existence carrying as the alternative, the near miss, the 12 minutes different version, this stone would have been the most important thing in his hand. He would have needed it. He would have had to use it. He would have needed the dead to stand beside him, to tell him he wasn't alone, to give him the permission to walk forward. He turned it over in his fingers. Then he put it in his pocket without using it. His parents were not echoes. They were in the house in the Highlands where his father had burned the toast that morning and his mother had been reading at the kitchen table with her hand moving across the margin of something interesting. They were alive and specific and waiting. He didn't need to summon them. He could not summon them. The stone summoned the dead, and they were not dead. That was the point. That was the whole point. He walked forward. Voldemort's curse hit him. He died, briefly. He was in the White Place with Dumbledore. He came back. He came back because he always was going to. He came back because the protection held, as Lily said it would, as he had believed it would, as Dumbledore had promised it would. He came back because there were people to come back to. He came back because coming back was the thing he had been moving toward for the entire war. He came back. Voldemort fell. The Great Hall held the dead and the living. The battle ended in the way that battles end, not cleanly, not heroically, but in the specific and exhausted quiet that follows the last curse and the last fall. Harry stood in the Great Hall and thought about home. Then the doors opened. James came through first. He had not been supposed to be there. None of the remaining order was supposed to be there. The Ministry had been keeping them back while the school was inside the anti-apparition wards. James had apparently decided that the wards dropping was authorization enough. He crossed the Great Hall at a pace that was not quite running, and that was not quite walking, and that was very specifically the pace of someone who is trying not to run, only because running would mean acknowledging how afraid they have been. He stopped 3 feet from Harry. He was looking at Harry with the expression that Harry had never seen on his father's face before, and that he understood immediately this was the face James had been managing not to make for an entire year. The unperformed one. The complete one. "Hi, Dad," Harry said. James grabbed him. The bone-crushing hug. The full-force one. The one that had been building for a year and that arrived now with everything it had been accumulating. Harry held on. "I told you," James said, into Harry's shoulder. His voice was rough. "I told you come back." "I did," Harry said. "I told you I would." Lily arrived. She had been moving more carefully through the hall, stepping around the living and the dead with the specific attention of someone tracking injuries. She stopped at James's shoulder. She looked at Harry over James's shoulder. Harry looked at her. She put her hand on his face. Just for a moment, the specific palm-to-cheek gesture that she had been doing since he was small, the one that said, "Here you are. I know exactly where you are." "Hi, Mum," Harry said. "Hi," she said. Then she hugged him too. Both of them together, both parents, the specific architecture of a family that had spent 17 years holding itself together around the fact of what it almost hadn't had, and that was now, in the Great Hall of Hogwarts at the end of the war, whole. "Is it over?" James said. "Yes," Harry said. "Voldemort, gone," Harry said. "All of them, the Horcruxes and him. It's done." A long breath. The three of them breathing together in the Great Hall. "All right," James said. "Yes," Lily said. "Yes," Harry said. They stood together. Around them, the hall contained the grief and the relief of a war ending, people finding each other, people mourning, people doing the specific work of counting and accounting. Harry was aware of all of it. He would need to be part of all of it. But not yet. Not yet. After. The years of after. These were the years nobody wrote about in the histories, which focused on the war and its end, and the specific dramatic shape of the thing. The after was quieter and harder and better than the during, in the way that all afters are. James and Lily went back to the house in the Highlands. They had not left it. It had been their home for 17 years, and it was their home still. The specific landscape of it now associated with everything that had been thought and feared and hoped during the war. They kept it. They added to it, slowly, the accumulation of years in a house you intend to grow old in. Harry lived there for the 2 years after Hogwarts while he trained as an Auror. He had a room that was his, had always been his, and the room was different from what it had been when he was a child, but it was still the same room, still with the window that looked toward the mountains. He came down to breakfast on mornings when he needed to be somewhere specific and ordinary, and James made tea badly. He had been making tea badly for 30 years and showed no signs of improvement, and Lily made tea correctly, and they all three sat at the kitchen table with the morning light and talked about whatever needed talking about. He moved into London eventually. He was an Auror. He had a flat. He had friends, Ron and Hermione, who were in London too, who were building the lives that the war had nearly prevented them from building. He went back to the Highlands on weekends when he could. Sirius was alive. Sirius was slightly greyer and significantly less reckless than he had been at 20, and still came to Sunday dinners and still knocked Harry's glasses off when he hugged him. He had a flat in Edinburgh and a habit of appearing for meals without prior notice that Lily had given up complaining about around 1995. Remus was alive. He had a daughter. Dora and Remus had found their way to each other after the war, in the specific way of two people who had decided that life was too precarious to waste on waiting. Their daughter Teddy had turquoise hair and the temperament of someone who had decided the world was generally interesting. Peter Pettigrew served his sentence and was released and went somewhere that nobody tracked because nobody wanted to know, and his role in everything had been so comprehensively documented that the knowing was sufficient. Snape retired from Hogwarts in 2000. He spent 3 years doing research from the solitude he preferred. He and Lily wrote to each other, had been writing to each other since the brief exchange after Harry's 6th year office visit. The letters were not warm, exactly. They had not arrived at warm, had not made the journey from complicated to warm. They were precise. They were honest. They were the communication of two people who had a shared history that was not good and who had decided, in late adulthood, that the shared history was not the whole story. Harry met Snape for tea in London in 2003. It was arranged through his mother. It was awkward and specific, and the tea was very good, and the conversation was the kind of conversation that required both people to be more honest than was comfortable. At the end, standing outside the tea shop on a rainy afternoon, Snape looked at Harry with the expression that Harry had learnt to read as something beyond assessment. "You are considerably less irritating than your father," Snape said. "That's a low bar," Harry said. "Your father has raised the bar considerably with age," Snape said. "He was recently less irritating than Dumbledore, which is not a competition Dumbledore would have predicted losing." Harry laughed. He thought, in the laugh, about everything that had been between Snape and the people in his life. The specific, complicated history that had been the context of his entire existence, and that he had spent 6 years learning to hold without resentment. "Thank you," Harry said, "for what you did during the war." Snape was quiet. "I'm not speaking for my mother," Harry said. "I know she's said it. I'm saying it for myself. You don't need," Snape started. "I know I don't need to," Harry said. "I wanted to." Snape looked at him. The long look. The assessment that had always been something else underneath. "Thank you," Snape said. They shook hands. It was somewhat formal and entirely appropriate, and neither of them mentioned it afterward, but Harry told his mother when he got home, and Lily's response was a single word: good. The specific texture of James Potter as a father. This is the thread that the histories left out. The specific, ordinary, irreplaceable texture of him. He made breakfast at weekends. Not well. He was not a competent cook, had never been a competent cook. Operated in the kitchen with the specific, cheerful incompetence of someone who understood the principles of cooking and consistently misapplied them in interesting ways. The eggs were usually either overcooked or undercooked. The toast was intermittently burnt. The orange juice was always right, because orange juice was a question of squeezing, and James could squeeze. Harry had grown up with these breakfasts, had been sitting at the kitchen table since he was old enough to sit up, with the morning light and the orange juice and whatever James was doing to the eggs, and the specific quality of a weekend morning in the house in the Highlands. He had not known, as a child, that this was extraordinary. Children don't know that. He had only known that the kitchen was warm and that his father was there and that the orange juice was always right. He knew it later. He knew it in the way you know things in retrospect, with the gratitude that arrives when you understand what the alternative was. The alternative had been possible, had almost been actual. The night at Godric's Hollow was 12 minutes away from having been something else. 12 minutes in which Sirius had driven a motorbike at illegal speed and had arrived to find 2 living people and a sleeping baby. Harry had been old enough at 9 to understand the 12 minutes. He had asked James about it. James had said, "I try not to think about it, but you do?" Harry said. "Yes," James said. "Sometimes I do." "What do you think about?" James had been quiet for a moment. They had been in the garden. He had been pushing Harry on the garden swing, which was something they did on weekend evenings when the summer was long. "I think about you," James said. "About what you'd have been like without us." "I think it would have been." He paused. "I think you'd have been remarkable. I think you'd have been brave and clever," and he stopped. "But I think there'd have been something missing. The specific thing that gets built when you grow up knowing you're loved." Harry thought about this from inside the swing. "What gets built?" he said. "The baseline," James said. "The place you know you can come back to." He paused. "It's hard to describe if you don't know what it's like to not have it." Harry let the swing slow. "But you know what it's like to not have it," he said. "A little." James looked at him. "Your mum died when you were young," Harry said. "And your dad." "Before I was born." "Yes," James said. "So you know both things," Harry said, "what it's like to have the baseline and what it's like when it goes." James was quiet. He looked at the garden, at the specific ordinary garden that had been Harry's for his whole life. "Yes," James said. "I know both things." "Is that why you?" Harry paused. "Why you're how you are? About me?" James looked at him. "What do you mean how I am about you?" "You know what I mean," Harry said. James nodded. "Slowly, I know what you mean," he said. "Yes, that's why." He paused. "Also because you're extraordinary. Also just because of that." "Dad, you are," James said. "I'm your father. I'm allowed to say it." Harry smiled. The swing was still now. The garden was evening golden. Above the garden, the first stars were appearing. "Also," James said, "the orange juice is always right." "That's your parenting achievement?" Harry said. "It's consistent," James said. "Consistency matters." Harry laughed. James laughed. The garden was around them, and the house was behind them, and the mountains were blue in the distance, and that was all it was, and that was everything. The specific texture of Lily Potter as a mother. She was precise. This was the word. Precise in the way that brilliant people are precise when they have decided that precision is kindness. That vagueness does not protect anyone. That the honest version of a thing is always better than the managed version, even when the honest version is harder. She told Harry difficult things directly. She told him about the scar, what she knew about it, what she suspected when he was 9 and asked. She told him about the war, the full version, not the child-safe version, when he was 11 and going to Hogwarts. She told him about Snape when he asked. She told him about the night at Godric's Hollow in the specific, non-dramatized, factual way of someone who has processed something and who is presenting the processed version rather than the raw one. She had processed it. That was the specific thing about Lily. Not that she didn't feel things, but that she processed them. the way she processed everything, through the rigorous systematic engagement of someone who believed that understanding a thing was the only adequate response to it. Harry had asked her once, when he was about 15, how she had processed the night. What the processing had looked like. She had thought about it for a while before answering. "I kept coming back to the mechanics," she said. "I'm a scientist. When I'm frightened by something, I find the mechanics of it. I spent the first year after Godric's Hollow studying the mechanics of sacrificial magic. What it was, how it worked, what I had done and why it had worked. The understanding made it smaller." "Did it make it not frightening?" Harry said. "No," she said. "I was frightened of it for years. I still am sometimes, but I understood it. And understanding it meant I wasn't frightened of the parts I could account for, only of the parts I couldn't." "What parts can't you account for?" Harry said. She looked at him. At the green eyes. Her eyes. The eyes she had looked at from across the room in the nursery at Godric's Hollow when she threw herself between them and the thing that was coming. "You," she said, "I can't account for everything that's going to happen to you. I can understand the mechanics and prepare you as well as I know how and tell you everything I know. But you're a person, and people exceed their preparation." He paused. "That's the part I can't account for. Is that frightening?" "Yes," she said. "And wonderful. Both at the same time." Harry sat with this. "I think you're going to be fine," she said. "You can't account for everything. I don't need to account for everything," she said. "I have evidence. You are the most consistently competent 11-year-old I have encountered, and I have encountered several." "I'm 15, Harry said. "I was summarizing," she said. Harry laughed. Lily smiled. It was the specific smile, the small, precise, real one that she deployed rarely and that meant she was actually amused rather than performing amusement. "Mum," he said. "Yes?" "Thank you." "For," he paused. He was 15 and did not yet have the full vocabulary. "For all of it." "You don't have to thank me for that," she said. "It's not a thing that requires thanks." "I want to say it anyway," he said. She looked at him, the full look, the direct one. "I know," she said. "Say it then, thank you," he said. "You're welcome," she said. Entirely Ron and Hermione. The friendships that formed when Harry had a home to bring them to. Ron Weasley came to the house in the Highlands for the first time in third year, invited for Christmas because his family was doing something complicated with visiting relatives. And Ron had met James and Lily with the specific, wide-eyed quality of someone encountering something they had heard about their whole life. James had been in fine form that Christmas. The specific, performative warmth of James Potter when given an audience he liked. Ron had laughed twice within the first hour, which James had clearly identified as a personal achievement. Lily had made sure Ron ate enough, which Ron had received with the comfortable ease of someone accustomed to this from his own mother, and who recognised it as the primary love language of women who feed people. "Your parents are brilliant," Ron said that night, in the room that was Harry's, and that was where Ron was sleeping. "They're a lot," Harry said. "No, they're brilliant," Ron said. "My mum and dad are brilliant too, but differently. Your mum she knows everything." "She doesn't know everything," Harry said. "She just reads everything." "That's the same thing," Ron said. "It genuinely isn't," Harry said. "Your dad is." Ron paused, searching for the word. "He's what James Potter is supposed to be like. In the stories." "What stories?" "The Order stories. The war stories. Everyone has them, my mum, Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall." Ron looked at the ceiling. "He's supposed to be this legendary figure. And he is. But he also burned the toast at breakfast." "He always burns the toast," Harry said. "That's the part that gets left out of the stories," Ron said. Harry looked at the ceiling. Outside, the Scottish night was dark and cold and quiet, the specific quality of the Highlands at Christmas when the world contracted to the inside of the house and the inside of the house was warm and loud. Yeah, Harry said. That's the best part. Hermione came the following Easter. Hermione arrived with the specific, comprehensive attention she brought to everything new, and assessed the house, and James and Lily and the garden and the library, especially the library, with the focused assessment of someone who was building a complete picture. She asked Lily questions for 3 hours on the first day. Harry watched his mother in the specific pleasure of encountering someone who kept up with her, who asked the second-order question, who followed the implication, who was interested in the mechanics rather than the result. At dinner, Lily said, "Hermione, what are you going to do after Hogwarts?" "I don't know yet," Hermione said. "Something in magical lore perhaps, or research. I keep changing my mind." "Don't change your mind on a schedule," Lily said. "Change it when the evidence warrants." Hermione looked at her with the expression of someone receiving advice they are going to carry for the rest of their life. "I'll remember that," Hermione said. "James, across the table, what she means is, trust yourself more." "That's what I said," Lily said. "You said it in more words," James said. "More precise words," Lily said. Harry and Ron, adjacent to this exchange, exchanged the look they had developed for James and Lily conversations. The look said, "This is what they're like." The subtext of the look said, "It's wonderful." Hermione caught the look. Her expression, briefly, was the expression of someone who is aware of something that they haven't previously been able to name, and who has just been given the name. After dinner, she said to Harry, quietly, "You're very lucky." "I know," Harry said. "I've always known that." "Does it feel weird, knowing it while also just living in it?" Harry thought about this. "Sometimes," he said. "Sometimes it's both at once, the knowing it's extraordinary and it also just being Tuesday with my parents." "That sounds good," Hermione said. "It is," Harry said. "It's very good." The last thread. The one about the specific quality of Harry Potter who was raised. He was different from the version who was not raised. Not entirely different, he was still brave, still fiercely loyal, still possessed of the specific instinct-level certainty that some things were worth doing and some things were not, and that the line between them was generally visible if you looked. He was still the person who would walk into danger for the people he loved without hesitation. But the not hesitation was different. In the version of Harry who grew up without his parents, the not hesitation had the quality of someone who had nothing to protect behind him, the forward charge of someone who has always been running towards something without a home to run from. That Harry's courage had the quality of someone who lives in the future tense. This Harry's courage was present tense. He had things, had people, had the house and the kitchen and the Sunday dinners and the letters and the orange juice that was always right. He had a baseline. And the having of the baseline did not make him less brave. It made him brave differently. When he walked toward Voldemort's curse in the forest, he was not running toward something. He was completing a circuit. He was doing the last things so that the first things could continue to exist. He was doing it for James and Lily. Not from James and Lily, the direction was outward, not inward. "The love is the engine," James had said. Yes, it was. It had always been. He came back from the forest, and the war ended, and the love continued, which was what it was always for. Not the war, not the sacrifice, the continuing. The Tuesday mornings, and the burnt toast, and the orange juice always right, and the letters, and the Sunday dinners, and the specific, irreplaceable, ordinary weight of the life he had. He was Harry Potter who was raised, who had been given the things that are most easily taken for granted precisely because they are so present, who had been given two parents who survived the worst night and who refused to let it make them smaller, who made breakfasts and wrote letters and told stories and taught him to fly and sat with him at the kitchen table when the world required sitting, who had been given the baseline, the warm certainty of the catching, He carried this through everything. Through Hogwarts and the Horcruxes and the war and the forest. He carried it into the after and into the years that followed, the long, ordinary years that were not in the history books because they were not dramatic and were not the point of the story. They were the point of the story. They had always been the point of the story. One last thing. The scene that contains all the others. Harry was 26. He had been an Auror for 4 years. He was visiting home on a Sunday afternoon in September, which was when the light in the Highlands was the specific, angled, significant light of early autumn. The light that makes everything look the way important things look when you are young enough to know they are important. James was in the garden. He was doing something to one of the flower beds that looked more like archaeology than gardening, which was the specific quality of James's approach to all manual tasks. Lily was in the kitchen. Harry could see her through the window, at the table, reading, her hand moving across a page in the specific way she had when she was making notes in the margin of something interesting. Sirius was on the garden bench with a cup of tea, watching James attempt the flower bed and occasionally saying things that were probably not helpful. Harry stood in the doorway between the house and the garden and looked at it. This was the baseline. This was the first thing. This was the warm certainty of the catching, built out of years and ordinary mornings and the orange juice always right. Built by two people who survived the worst night and who decided that the surviving was not enough. That the surviving was only the beginning, and that what came after had to be something worth surviving for. He had grown up in the middle of this, had not, as a child, known how to see it, had known it the way you know warmth, not as a thing you think about, but as the temperature of your life. He knew it now. "You're letting the cold in," Lily said from the kitchen, without looking up from her book. Harry stepped out, closed the door. James looked up from the flower bed. Saw Harry. The expression, the one that performed casualness and failed at it, the one that meant you being here matters enormously to me, was immediate. "You're early," James said. "I left when I was ready to leave," Harry said. "That seemed more efficient than a specific time." "That's your mother's logic," James said. "I've spent 26 years absorbing her logic," Harry said. "It's had an effect." James stood up. He had earth on his hands and he had been aging for 26 years and his hair was greyer than it had been when Harry was a child. He was still James, still the warmth before words, still the hands that never stopped moving, still the person who made everything an occasion. He walked across the garden. "Well," James said. "Well," Harry said. James put his arms around him. Not the bone-crushing version, a different version, the version of someone who has been doing this for 26 years and who knows what this is, who is not performing it but doing it, the full weight of everything it contains. Harry held on. "Good to have you home," James said. "Good to be home," Harry said. It was. It was the specific, complete good of being somewhere that has always been yours, not because it was given to you or because you earned it, but because it is the place that formed you, the place that made the baseline, the place that is the warm certainty of the catching. He was home. He had always been home. There are more threads. The ones about who Harry was that nobody else saw. The night terrors. Harry had them. Not many. Not the systematic, structural ones he would have had if the orphanage had been his childhood, but specific ones, arriving in the small hours of specific nights, connected to things he had been told rather than experienced, which was its own kind of frightening. He had dreamed about the night at Godric's Hollow from the age of 9. Not the same dream every time, variations of it, some closer to what he'd been told than others. He would dream of the cottage and the broken wall and his parents on the floor. He would dream of the nursery. At 11, the dreams intensified when he found out about the Triwizard Tournament. At 14, They became specific and present and located in his body. He was 14 and he knew now what the graveyard could have been, what had almost happened, and the knowing was different from the abstract knowing of a child who understands in principle that something terrible had almost occurred. He told his mother. He didn't tell his father first. James's response to Harry's fear, because James loved him so completely, was sometimes too large, too immediate, too activated, the response of someone for whom Harry's fear was also his own. Lily's response was more useful in the nights. She came to his room one December night when he was 14 and found him sitting on the bed at 3 a.m. looking at the wall. She sat beside him. She did not ask what he was thinking about. She already knew. "Tell me," she said. He told her about the dreams, the graveyard. The specific, visceral quality of what the graveyard had almost been, what it would have been without his parents' preparation, without the information they had given him, without the specific advantage of having been told what to look for. "You're afraid of what you would have been," Lily said. "Yes," Harry said. "If it had happened differently. If we hadn't survived," she said. "Yes," Lily was quiet for a moment. "I'm afraid of that too," she said. "Not for you exactly, I know what you are. I'm afraid of the alternative in the abstract, of a world where you exist but we don't, and what that would have been for you." "You think about it," Harry said. "Sometimes," she said. "Less than I used to. More when you're in danger." He looked at her in the specific dark of the December night, with the mountains outside the window invisible and the house breathing around them. "What do you think I would have been like," he said, "if it had happened the other way?" Lily thought about it. Genuinely, in the way she thought about everything, fully, without shortcutting. "Brave," she said. "Absolutely, the courage is in you independently. Nothing would have changed that." She paused. "Angry, I think there would have been a specific anger in you that isn't quite there now, the anger of someone who has been failed by everything that was supposed to protect them." "And now?" Harry said. "What is it now instead of the anger?" "Purpose," she said. The same energy, pointed differently. "You fight for things rather than against them." He sat with this. "That's because of you," he said. "Yes," she said. "And your father. And the life." She looked at him. "You're allowed to be grateful for it, Harry. You're allowed to say it out loud." "I know," he said. "Then say it," she said. He looked at his mother. At the green eyes in the December dark, at the face that had been the last thing she'd seen before she'd thrown herself between him and a killing curse, and that had been the first face he'd learned, and that was here now, in the middle of the night, beside him on the bed while he processed the dreams. "I'm grateful," he said. "I'm so grateful." "Good," she said. "Hold on to it. Not as a weight, as a foundation. There's a difference?" "Yes," she said. "Gratitude as a weight crushes you. Gratitude as a foundation holds you up. It's a choice how you carry it." He stayed for a while. They talked. Eventually he fell back asleep, and in the morning the dream was smaller, which was what happened when you said the things that were too large at 3 a.m, they became sized correctly for daytime. James and the Quidditch. There is no version of Harry Potter who does not love Quidditch. This is a fact about him. It lives in the structure of who he is. The specific physical joy of the broom and the air and the speed. In the version where he grew up with his parents, the Quidditch was even earlier, even more fundamental, woven into his childhood from before he could remember. But the specific texture of Harry's Quidditch was James's Quidditch. Not the technique, the feeling. James had never been able to teach Harry technique effectively because James had too much emotion attached to the subject to be pedagogically precise. What he had given Harry was the love of it, the uncomplicated, physical, flying joy of the thing. James came to every Hogwarts Quidditch match that Harry played in. Every single one. He was there at the beginning of first year for the first practice, standing on the pitch with his hands in his pockets and the expression of someone trying to look casual and failing enormously. And he was there when Harry caught the snitch in his 7th year final, making more noise than the rest of the Gryffindor stands combined. "You're embarrassing," Harry told him, after the 3rd year match where James had, at the end, climbed the stands to celebrate with the team. "I'm your father," James said. "I'm supposed to be embarrassing." "There are limits," Harry said. "There are not," James said. "There genuinely are not." The specific Quidditch conversation that Harry carried longest happened in 5th year. After a game that had gone badly, they'd lost to Ravenclaw. Harry had missed the snitch, the weather had been terrible, and the margin of defeat had been wide. He had been sitting in the changing rooms after everyone left, in the specific, flat stillness of a bad performance not yet processed. James had been waiting outside. They walked back to the castle together. James didn't say anything about the game for a while. He talked about other things, a story from his own 5th year that was funny and self-deprecating, and that Harry understood was both a genuine story and a deliberate recontextualization. "Then, you'll catch it next time," James said. "I know," Harry said. He wasn't the kind of person who dwelt on failures in sport. He processed them and moved on. The flat stillness was not about the snitch. "What is it then?" James said. "Umbridge," Harry said. "Ah," James said. He stopped. "She took Quidditch from me for a while last year. The suspension. And it's back now and it should be just flying again and instead it's loaded," James said. "With everything she represented." "Yes, it'll deload," James said. "Give it time. Things that get loaded by bad people deload when the bad people are gone." "She's still here," Harry said. "Still the High Inquisitor." "Not for much longer," James said. He said it with the specific, quiet certainty of someone who knew more than they were saying. "And when she's gone, the Quidditch will just be the Quidditch again." Harry looked at him. "What do you know about?" "Nothing you need to know tonight," James said. "Trust Dumbledore." "I do trust Dumbledore," Harry said. "That's not the same as being satisfied with not knowing." James looked at him sideways. "I'm aware of that," he said. "You got the being unsatisfied with not knowing from your mother, and I'm on record as having always found it exhausting and reassuring," Harry said. "Yes," James said. "Also that." They walked. The castle was ahead of them, lit up in the evening, the specific warm light of Hogwarts at night that Harry had thought, ever since he first arrived, was one of the best things he had ever seen. "Dad," Harry said. "Yes?" "You used to tell me," Harry paused, "when I was small. You'd tell me about when you played. Stories from school. You made it sound," he searched for the word, "like the best thing." "It was the best thing," James said. "For a while." "Why only for a while?" "Because other things became the best thing," James said. "Your mother. The Order. You," he paused. "Quidditch is the best thing until better things arrive. That's the natural order of it." Harry thought about this, about the natural order of it, the things that are the best things, and then the things that become better. "What's the best thing now?" Harry said. James looked at him, the performing casualness that was not casual at all. "This," he said, "right now, walking back to the castle with you." "That's very sentimental," Harry said. "I am very sentimental," James said. "Your mother is the sensible one. I'm the sentimental one. It's a division of responsibilities." "I know," Harry said. "I appreciate both." "Good," James said. "You're supposed to." The letter Harry kept longest. It arrived in his 2nd year, September, and he had not been expecting it. It was not the weekly letter, not the response to anything he'd sent. It arrived on a Tuesday morning with the breakfast owls, and it was from James, and it was short. It said, "Harry, I've been thinking about something since you left for school, and I want to write it down. Your mother and I have told you the story about Godric's Hollow. We've told you about the night and what happened and the 12 minutes and all of it. We've told you honestly the way we both believe you should be told things. What I haven't said, and I should say it, is this. You are not the reason we almost lost each other. You are the reason we didn't. That distinction matters to me, and I want you to know it. What I mean is, if Voldemort had come for the Potters, and there had been no Harry, no prophecy, no reason, I think we would have fought him, and I think it would have gone differently. Without Lily's sacrifice, without the love that powered it, I don't think we make it out. I don't know that, but I think it. You didn't put us in danger. You saved us. By existing. By being the thing your mother loved enough to do what she did. I'm not saying this to put weight on you. I'm saying it because I want you to know the whole truth, which is that the night at Godric's Hollow is not the story of what we almost lost. It is the story of what we found. What we found was something worth everything. And the something was you. I love you. Have a good week. Write back when you can. Dad Harry had read this letter 4 times in a row when it arrived. He had put it in the box under his bed, the box with the other letters he read again. He had taken it out and read it again at the end of 2nd year, and at the end of every year since, and he had it still, the paper worn soft at the folds, the ink still clear, James's sprawling handwriting unchanged. He carried it because it was the truest thing, not the most dramatic, or the most relevant, or the most useful, the truest, the thing that in the whole history of what Harry Potter was, and where he came from, and what had made him, this was the truest. You are not the reason, you are the reason it didn't happen. The love is the engine. Come home, Ron Weasley, on the subject of the Potters. He said it once, in 7th year, in the tent, in one of the nights when the weight of everything was most present, and when the 3 of them were sitting with it in the specific sustained way of people who have been in a tent for months and who have exhausted the easy conversations. He said, I think about what you'd be like without them. Harry looked at him. What would I be like? I don't know exactly, Ron said. Different. He paused. I think you'd still be brave, that's in you, but I think... He was searching for the words, in the way Ron searched for words, when he was saying something he'd been thinking about for a long time. I think you'd be braver in a scarier way, like the bravery would be the main thing instead of one of the things. What's the difference? Harry said. The difference is you have a home, Ron said. When things are over, you go back to somewhere. When I think about fighting for things, I think about my family, my mum, the burrow. It's not abstract, it's there. The thing I'm fighting for is real and I can picture it. He paused. You have that, and I think without it you'd be fighting for something you couldn't picture. Just the concept. Just the abstract thing. Harry thought about this. The abstract thing isn't enough, Hermione said from her corner. She had been reading but had clearly been listening. It's enough to fight, Ron said. Not enough to win. Or, he stopped, not enough to come back. When you're winning or not winning, what makes you come back is the specific thing, the thing you can see. Harry looked at him. I can see it, Harry said. I know, Ron said. That's why you're going to be all right. They were all 3 quiet for a while. The tent was around them, and outside the forest was dark and the wall was waiting. Thank you, Harry said to Ron. I didn't do anything, Ron said. You see things, Harry said. You see things clearly. You don't get enough credit for that. I get some credit, Ron said. More credit coming, Harry said. Ron smiled. The Ron smile. The full one. The real one. Your dad's going to cry when this is over, Ron said. I'm warning you. He's going to cry a lot, Harry said. I know, Ron said. I've seen the letters. He cries in the letters. Not crying, Harry said. He says not crying, and then 3 sentences later, the handwriting changes and gets bigger and more emotional. That's crying, Hermione said from her corner. That's crying, Harry agreed. They were quiet again. Comfortable, quiet. The tent was warm. Lily Potter, after the war, she went back to work, research. The advanced magical theory research that she had been doing since she left the ministry. The kind that didn't have an institutional address, but that produced papers that appeared in journals and that were read by people who cared about the underlying mechanics of magic rather than its applications. She was interested in sacrificial magic. Had been since the night at Godric's Hollow. Not from a personal fixation, she had processed the personal fixation, had done the work, had arrived at equanimity about it in the way she arrived at equanimity about most things, through understanding. She was interested academically. The specific magic that had saved Harry, that had saved both of them, that had produced the rebounding curse and the Scar Horcrux, and ultimately the mechanism of Voldemort's defeat, the mechanics of it were not fully understood, and not fully understood things were the specific territory that Lily Potter found most interesting. She wrote a paper in 2000 that was called, in the academic journals, a foundational text on sacrificial magic. Harry read it. He understood perhaps 60% of it. He told her this. What's the other 40%? She said. Advanced theory I don't have the foundation for, he said. I'll send you the reading list, she said. Mum, you asked, she said. He read the reading list. It took a year and a half and several evenings of sitting at the kitchen table with Lily explaining things that the reading list had not fully clarified. At the end of it, he read the paper again and understood perhaps 85%. Better, Lily said. What's the last 15? Harry said. Intuition, she said. The part you get from years of research. The part that can't be taught. So I need to do years of research? Or ask me when it matters, she said. That's what I'm here for. He carried this too. The specific, ordinary version of Lily's precision, that's what I'm here for said without drama, with the matter-of-fact certainty of someone who understood that being here was the job, and who had been doing the job for 30 years without apology or fanfare. That was what she was here for. Both of them were here for that. They were here, and Harry was the reason, and the reason was the love, and the love was the engine. Everything else was the story around that. This is what was different when Harry Potter was raised. Not the bravery. The bravery was always there, bone deep. The specific courage that the Hat had called deliberate, and that was his before Hogwarts, before the Scar, before any of it. Not the intelligence was always there too. His mother's architecture under his father's instincts. The specific combination that produced someone who could plan and charge simultaneously, who could be both precise and present. What was different was the scale of what he was protecting. In another world, an orphan, Harry fought for things he had never had, for the abstract, for justice, for people who never had what he never had, for the world to be the way it should be rather than the way it was. But Harry's courage was enormous and real, and it is not diminished by saying that it came from a different place. This Harry's courage came from abundance. From the specific, complete, ordinary abundance of a life full of people. From the orange juice always right, and the burnt toast, and the letters, and the Sunday dinners, and the Quidditch, and the kitchen table, and the green eyes looking at him, and the hug on the platform, and come back. Harry James, I'm telling you. He fought for all of it, for the specific things, for James and Lily and Sirius and Remus and Ron and Hermione and everyone in every tent and every battle who was also someone's specific, irreplaceable, particular person. For the continuing of all of it. And it continued. He came back from the forest. The war ended. The life went on. James Potter burned the toast on a Sunday morning in October of 2001, and Harry was at the kitchen table, and Lily was reading, and Sirius was on the garden bench, and the mountains were going blue in the distance. Ordinary, extraordinary, both, the thing worth surviving for. Always. There are more threads. Let us pull them. Harry's relationship with his scar. He had looked at it every day of his life. It was there in every mirror, visible most mornings when he brushed his teeth or washed his face, the thin, white, lightning bolt-shaped mark on his forehead, just above and between his eyebrows, usually half hidden by his fringe. He had not always felt simply about it. It was the mark of the night that had almost not been survived. It was the piece of Voldemort's soul that had lived in him for 16 years. It was the thing that people noticed when they looked at him. The thing that preceded him into rooms. The visible evidence of the story. He had asked his father about it when he was 8. Not about the Horcrux, he didn't know about that yet, but about the shape of it. Why a lightning bolt? James had sat with this question for a moment. I don't know the magic well enough to explain the shape, he said. Your mother probably does. But, he paused, I'll tell you what I think about it. What? Harry said. A lightning bolt is what happens when something charges across a sky, James said. It's force moving through something. It's the mark of something that passed through. He paused. You've got the mark of something that tried to end you and didn't. The scar is the proof that it failed. Harry looked at the scar in the mirror for a long time after that. The proof that it failed. He stopped thinking of it as the mark of the night. He started thinking of it as the proof of the surviving. This lasted until 5th year, when he knew about the Horcrux and the scar meant something different. He adjusted. He always adjusted. This was the specific skill that growing up with James and Lily had given him, the ability to revise his understanding when new information arrived rather than defending the old understanding against the evidence. The scar meant, here is a piece of the thing you have to finish, and also, here is the proof of the first night's surviving. Both things. He told his father about the Horcrux eventually. After Dumbledore told him, after he told his parents, he had a separate conversation with James about the scar specifically. It's inside me, Harry said. The piece of him. Yes, James said. And you knew. After Dumbledore told me. You've known for months. Yes, James said. Does it? Harry paused. Does it change how you see me? James looked at him. The direct look, the unperformed one. No, James said. You don't even have to think about it? No, James said. It doesn't change how I see you. You are my son. You have a piece of a dark wizard in your forehead, and you are still and completely my son, and that is the beginning and end of it. Harry sat with this. It won't be there forever, he said. No, James said. After, James said, it won't be there, and before and after, you're still my son. He paused. I want you to understand that the Horcrux is a thing that happened to you, not a thing that is you. The scar is yours, has always been yours, always will be. The Horcrux is temporary. It changes the scar, Harry said. When it's gone, will I think about the scar differently? James thought about it. You'll think about it as the proof that it's finished, he said. That's what I'd think. The proof that the whole thing is finished, from the night at Godric's Hollow to the end. The whole arc. Closed? Harry looked at his hands. A lightning bolt on the horizon, he said. Something that passed through and ended. James looked at him. That's better than what I said, he said. I had years to work with it, Harry said. You did, James said. You had years. Petunia Dursley. She existed. She was Lily's sister and she had always existed. And the question of Petunia was one of the complicated questions. The ones that didn't resolve cleanly because there was no clean resolution available. Lily and Petunia had repaired, somewhat, not fully, the distance of years and the specific structural jealousy that Petunia had carried since childhood were not things that fully resolved, but somewhat. They had contact. They had Christmas cards. They had, Occasionally, brief visits. Harry had met Aunt Petunia 3 times. He had met her son Dudley twice. The meetings had been stiff and slightly uncomfortable, with the specific quality of people who exist in relationship to each other through a third person and who do not quite know how to inhabit the relationship directly. He did not hold Petunia's jealousy against her. His mother had explained it to him, in the careful, full way that Lily explained things. The specific structural unfairness of being the non-magical sibling, of watching your sister be given a world that excluded you, of the gap between them that widened every September when Lily left for Hogwarts. She was afraid, Lily had told him. She was afraid of magic and afraid of losing me to it. Those are understandable fears. Did she lose you? Harry said. Not in the way she was afraid of, Lily said. But the gap didn't close. Do you wish it had? Lily was quiet for a moment. Sometimes, she said. I wish I'd found a way to. She paused. She didn't want to understand it. She wanted it not to exist. Those are different things, and the difference made closing the gap very hard. Harry had sat with this. He had thought about the version of his life in which he had been placed with Petunia, in which the gap between the sisters had been the geography of his childhood. He didn't spend much time on it. There was no point spending time on it. But he had sent Petunia a letter when he was 16. Short, awkward. It said something like, Aunt Petunia, my mum has told me about your childhood together and I wanted you to know that I know you loved her. I think it was complicated and I think there's things that were unfair and I just wanted you to know that I know. Petunia had written back. Shorter, stiffer, but she had written back, which was itself something. They had tea the summer before his 7th year at a cafe in London. Harry and Petunia in a cafe with the very good tea that the cafe provided and the very awkward conversation of 2 people who were related by blood and connection to a third person and who were meeting each other as themselves for the first time. Petunia had looked at Harry across the table with the expression of someone who was performing assessment and who was not entirely in control of what the assessment was revealing. You look like your father, she said. I know, Harry said. Lily always said you had her eyes. I do, Harry said. Petunia looked at her tea. She was very proud of you, she said. She wrote about you. When she wrote. She talks about you too, Harry said. More than you might think. Petunia was quiet. Something moved on her face that she was clearly managing to contain. She was always, Petunia started. Stopped. She was always the good one, she said. The one who did things right. I was angry about that for a long time. I know, Harry said. I don't think I was fair to her, Petunia said. It cost something, this admission. Harry could see the cost of it. She doesn't think in those terms, Harry said. She thinks about what was hard and what was understandable. She's very good at holding both. Yes, Petunia said. She always was. They had more tea. They talked about other things, Dudley, who was apparently doing well at his job, and Vernon, and the house in Surrey. Ordinary things. The conversation of people who are trying. Harry walked out of the cafe into the London afternoon and thought, this is also part of it. The complicated parts, the parts that don't resolve cleanly, the parts where the history is present and the repair is partial and real, the parts that his mother had been tending for years in her specific, careful way. All of it was part of it. All of it was the life. The specific quality of being famous. Harry had been famous since he was 15 months old. Not in the celebrity sense, not famous in a way that was about himself. Famous in the way that the boy who lived was famous, which was famous for something that had happened to him rather than something he had done. Famous as a symbol. Famous as the thing that the wizarding world pointed at and said, this is what survived. He had developed, over the years, a fairly robust relationship with this particular aspect of his existence. Not comfortable exactly, he was never entirely comfortable with the weight of public regard, but functional. He could be recognised in Diagon Alley and manage it. He could be stared at in Hogsmeade and not be derailed by it. He had his parents' help with this. His parents, who had been famous since October 31st, 1981, in the same complicated way, and who had navigated it for 20 years before Harry was old enough to navigate it himself. James's approach to the fame was consistent with his approach to most things. He found it funny when it was funny, and inconvenient when it was inconvenient, and neither particularly seriously. He had, over the years, developed the specific skill of making people who recognised him feel that they had done something friendly rather than intrusive, which was the most useful skill available for a person in his position. Lily's approach was to be so consistently herself, so specific, so present, so engaged as a person rather than a symbol, that the symbol aspect faded in the actual presence of her. People who met Lily Potter expecting to meet the famous Lily Potter, the brave, the clever, the woman who saved her son, they met Lily, who was all of those things and also was reading a paper in the corner and had opinions about the magical theory in it that she was going to share with you whether you wanted her to or not. Harry had absorbed both approaches. He had the James approach to the intrusive moments, the warmth and the slight absurdity that made the recognising feel less like an invasion. He had the Lily approach to the symbolic weight, the specific selfness, the refusal to be primarily a symbol, the being Harry before being the boy who lived. The aura work helped. It gave him a role that was specifically his, not inherited, not predicted, not connected to a scar on his forehead. He was good at it, better than he had initially expected, which was partly because his parents had given him preparation that most auras hadn't had, and partly because the specific, deliberate courage that Lily had called his turned out to be exactly the kind of courage the job required. He was Harry Potter the Aura. He was Harry Potter James and Lily's son. He was Harry Potter, who had been raised and who had come back from a forest, and who went home to the Highlands on Sundays when he could. He was Harry. That was the primary fact. That had always been the primary fact, the conversation between James and Sirius, the year after the war. Harry didn't hear this conversation. He learned about it years later, from Sirius, in the way you learn the things that happened around your life from the people who were inside it. Sirius told him, "Your dad and I got drunk the summer after the war. The summer after you finished everything. We sat in the garden in the Highlands and we got quite drunk, and your mum went to bed at a sensible hour and left us to it, which she has always been very good about." "What did you talk about?" Harry said. "The 12 minutes, Sirius said. "We talked about the 12 minutes. Harry looked at him. "Your dad we'd never really talked about it, directly, about what those 12 minutes meant. The specific, clear-eyed version of what would have happened if I hadn't made it." Sirius paused. "We were drunk enough to say it plainly, which is sometimes what drunk is for." "What did he say?" Harry said. "He said..." Sirius stopped, reconsidered. He said, "Thank you." In the full version. Not the version you say because it's what you say, the version where you know what you're thanking someone for. "And you?" "I said it wasn't fast enough," Sirius said. "I told him what I've always believed, that I should have moved sooner, that I had 3 weeks of watching Peter and not acting, and that those 3 weeks were mine, and I carry them." "And he said?" "He said you got there. That's all he said." Sirius looked at his hands. "Just, you got there." And somehow that was the right thing. That's the thing I've needed someone to say for 20 years. Harry sat with this, with the specific clean clarity of "you got there," the short version, the sufficient version, the version that doesn't take away the carrying but that acknowledges that carrying is enough. "He's good at that," Harry said. "The best," Sirius said. "Always was. Even at school, The way he could say the exact right thing with the minimum number of words when it mattered. He gets very wordy with the rest of it, but when it matters, he has the word minimum exactly right. Sirius paused. You got that from him. You think I got it from him? You have it with Ron, Sirius said. I've watched you. When Ron needs the thing said, you say it in one sentence. The rest of the time you can talk as long as your dad can, which is quite long. But when it matters, you get there, Harry said. Sirius looked at him. Yes, he said, you get there. One final thread. The last one. Harry and Ginny. She came late to the story, as the people who matter most sometimes do, not dramatically, not with announcement, but in the specific accumulating way of someone who has always been there in the periphery and who becomes present when the time is right. He had known her since first year. She was Ron's sister, was part of the Weasley household that he had visited and that had been warm and loud and full of people in the way that large families are full. He had known her as Ron's sister, and then as a person, and then, slowly, as the specific person who she was. He brought her to the house in the Highlands for the first time in their 6th year. James liked her immediately. This was evident from the first 15 minutes, the specific clear-eyed warmth that James deployed when he found someone worth deploying it at. Ginny received it with the comfortable ease of someone who had grown up in a warm house and who knew how to be received warmly without being overwhelmed by it. Lily took longer, not because she didn't like Ginny. She liked her a great deal, had said so to Harry in the specific assessed way that meant she'd been watching, and had arrived at a conclusion. She took longer because Lily always took longer with the things that mattered, because her care was the thorough kind, because she was making sure of something before she committed to the full version of it. The full version arrived on the second visit, when Ginny and Lily spent 2 hours in the kitchen while Harry and James were outside doing something with the flower bed, and came out of it with the expression that Harry had seen on Lily's face very rarely, the expression of someone who had been genuinely surprised by another person in the best possible way. She's formidable, Lily told Harry later. I know, Harry said. She doesn't defer, Lily said. I pushed on something, not deliberately, just the way I engage with people asking the second question, and she pushed back. Clearly without apology. That sounds like Ginny, Harry said. That's exactly Ginny, Lily said. I respect it enormously. He married her in 2000. The wedding was at the house in the Highlands, in the garden, in the September light. James cried at multiple points throughout the ceremony, which was expected and which everyone pretended not to notice, and which Harry found, from his position at the front, deeply and specifically comforting. Lily did not cry during the ceremony. She cried afterward, briefly, privately, in the kitchen, which Harry knew because he saw her come out of the kitchen with the specific, closed expression she used when she had been managing something. He hugged her. I'm fine, she said. I know you're fine, Harry said. I'm also. She paused. This is good. This is the kind of good that she paused again. I've been thinking about the house in the Highlands for 20 years as the place we came to after Godric's Hollow, the place we made instead of what we lost, and now it's also the place your wedding happened. What does that mean? Harry said. That it's full, she said. The house is full of things, not just the surviving. The after. Harry looked at her. The after, he said. The ordinary, good, specific after, she said. The things worth surviving for. Yes, Harry said. That's what I wanted too. She looked at him. The green eyes. Full of it. I know, she said. Come on. They're cutting the cake. He followed her out of the kitchen and back into the garden where James was embarrassing Ginny by telling a story about Harry at age 4 that Harry had specifically requested not be told at his wedding, and Sirius was laughing loudly, and the Weasleys occupied an entire third of the garden and were being entirely themselves, and the September light was the good light, the angled, significant light. He stood in his garden on his wedding day and looked at his life and felt the specific, complete quality of something that had been built rather than received. Something that had been possible because two people had survived a night they almost hadn't. Something that was all the ordinary things that make up all the extraordinary things. The life, the love as the engine. The after. Always the after. This is the story. Not the story of what was lost. Not the tragedy. Not the orphan. Not the boy under the stairs. The story of what wasn't. The story of 12 minutes and a motorbike and a decision made on the floor of a destroyed hallway before dawn on the first day of November 1981 to stay. To make a claim. To take a baby home rather than hand him to the machinery of institutions that would not know how to love him. The story of a house in the Scottish Highlands and what was built in it over 20 years. The burnt toast and the orange juice and the letters and the Sunday dinners and the specific accumulated ordinary weight of a life that was given rather than withheld. The story of Harry Potter who was raised, who flew on a broom at 3 years old and fell asleep in his father's arms on the way back inside, who wrote letters home every week from school and received them back the same day, 5 pages long and emotional in ways that James was not technically supposed to be emotional, but was always anyway, who walked into danger with the full weight of everything he was protecting behind him, and who came back. Because the coming back was the point. Because the people waiting for the coming back were the reason. Because the love, specific, ordinary, present, accumulated, impossible, was the engine. Come back, Harry James. He came back. He always was going to come back. The world was different because two people survived a night they almost didn't and raised the child who almost wasn't raised, and the raising was the thing that changed everything. Not the scar. Not the prophecy. Not the boy who lived in the abstract. The boy who was loved, specifically by specific people, in a specific house, with the specific, complete, ordinary abundance of parents who knew what they had and who chose every day to make sure he knew it too. That was the difference. That was the whole difference. That was everything.